Thank you. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Las Virgenes Unified School District of August 10th, 2021. Just a reminder that the meeting is being recorded and to please silence your cell phones. First item is flag salute, and tonight I'd like to welcome new to our meeting, first of all, our student board rep, Willow Gavin, who represents Calabasas High School, that side of the district, and Laura, I started to call you Laurel, oh my gosh, Bella Burnt from Agora High. We're very excited. We always get the best student board members in our district, and they rotate. They take turns coming up here at the dais, but they really put a lot of time and effort in, and we really thank them for stepping up to be our student board reps. We really value their voice on behalf of all students. And I'd also like to welcome Ms. Hallie Chambers to the dais as our new Director of Classified. So I'm going to call on you, Bella, if you will lead us in the flag salute. Everybody takes their turn, so.
And Mr. Seifried's the last year every week, so he's really
Yeah.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. I have nothing to report out of closed session. Looking for an approval of tonight's agenda.
I move to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Student board member?
Aye.
Board?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We have an agenda. First item, approval of minutes. We have two to approve: the regular board meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2021, and a virtual special meeting minutes of June 25th,
So moved.
2021.
Second.
So moved.
Thank you. Student board member?
Aye.
Board?
Aye.
Thank you. Staff board communication, and I usually start with our student board members, so welcome and hope you had a great summer. And
Thank you. Alrighty, so as you know, Agora and Calabasas, as well as all LVUSD schools, are preparing to go back to school next Wednesday. Registration started today for Agora and Calabasas, beginning with the seniors, and it will be leading all the way to the freshman registration on Friday. At Agora, Link Crew has been training to lead the freshmen for their orientation, which will be this Friday, and they will be giving tours to the freshmen, giving advice, and welcoming them to Agora. Calabasas will also be doing the same and giving freshman tours. Agora Student Council has our summer retreat taking place this Sunday, where we will spend the day at Agora's campus doing fun bonding activities and just getting to know one another. And then on the second Friday, we are back in school. Agora will be having our first football game, and followed right after the game, we will have the Big Friday Bash, which is a fun student event on the tennis courts. Lastly, all students are very excited and eager for school to start, and we hope that this will be a great year. And thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
thank you. Yay. Thank you. Ms. Stein?
Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone back to the dais, to the dining room. We were off the month of July. I know everybody's been hard at work getting the schools ready, and I wish everyone much luck and success as they get the rooms ready and the schools ready for the first all-student return to school in, honestly, about a year and a half, I guess it's been. So I do want to say that I had the opportunity, and I know Dr. Verdera did as well, to visit some of the summer schools. I visited Yerba Buena, and I visited the Find My Genius at Sumac. I have to tell you, it was so heartwarming to see the students back in the classrooms, learning and having fun together. And, it's interesting. They're not really conscious of wearing masks. They just talk and socialize and interact with each other and doing their lessons, and it was just what my heart needed, after all of this. So good luck, everyone, and welcome back.
Thank you. Dr. Videra?
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone back too. Seemed like summer was super quick. I hope everyone got some much needed rest and we're ready to roll our sleeves up and keep moving forward and stay smart and stay calm as we open our schools. for all our students. Super exciting. I would like to thank Ms. Falk for showing me around the extended school year program. This summer, it was really incredible. I learned a lot. It was just a great program. And just a lot of thanks to the staff who do such tremendous work for our students. It was very impressive, very heartwarming, and real gift to our students. The Find Your Genius program at SUMAC was really incredible too. It's an excellent opportunity for our students to, really grow and learn. And the teachers there were so excited. And a lot of their topics and their slogans were super applicable to all of our students, about changing your mindset and thinking about what you can do instead of what you can't do. So that was really lovely. And so big hats off to that program. And the LV Learns program, Jim and Tina Johnson, that was really incredible as well. And, for a pediatrician, there's nothing better than visiting the classrooms and seeing those kids in action. They are just so adorable. The other thing I've been up to is the California School Board Association offers a training program for new trustees. And I think most of us have done it, right? The Masters in Governance. And so I've been working on that. It is a series, I think, of like 6 or 8 courses, and it teaches you about what the role of a trustee is, how a school board should function to be its best, how we all need to work together. And it's a great opportunity to meet other school board trustees throughout the state, hear what they're going through, because we kind of get our own lens here in LVUSD. So it's nice to hear what other school boards are going through as well. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Videra. Ms. Mingus.
So I'd like to welcome everyone back and welcome Ms. Chambers to the dais and also our student board reps. I think I'm very excited for the upcoming school year. Back in July, I attended a webinar put on by Capital Advisors, which was dealing with the budget and budget perspectives, and they pointed out, I think several of our board members also attended it. Since it was a webinar, we didn't see each other, but it was interesting that we have a record number of policy changes in the budget this year, and they were saying how the trailer bills is where you implement all of the budgets, and also brought up that they have new rules for independent study this year as a result of all of the legislation. And I also was fortunate enough to have Mr. Klein and Ms. Johnson tour me around the LV summer program at Yerba Buena, and it was truly a blessing to see everybody in action and back almost like old times. So thank you very much, and good luck to a great start to a new year.
Thank you. Mr. Lawrence.
I'll be quick since we've welcomed everyone back. I'll add my welcome as well. I'll just share one anecdote from yesterday that I think really speaks to how great our teachers and staff are. My 3rd grader was talking to my incoming 2nd grader, telling him how much he's going to love his teacher, and then telling him all about the things he needs to know about how to get to where his class is going to be, but really focusing on how great the teachers are. And I thought it was just so cute. We were listening to it. And I imagine that conversation's happening in homes all over the district this week and next week as our kids are just literally desperate to come back to school. My daughter turned 13 yesterday, and when she was asked what she wanted for her birthday, I kid you not, she said, "I just want to go back to school." I think that it's not something I would have thought that kids would, you would expected kids to be saying on their birthday. But it really, I think, speaks to the hunger for a return to the classroom, a hunger to be on campus and be in that environment with our teachers and staff and their friends. And I'm really pleased to see that we are moving to and able to go to a full-time, in-person education starting in just 1 week. And congratulations to the staff for getting us there. I know it was a long haul. Nobody took any days off this summer.
I'll be very brief. I just want to thank staff for how hard they worked last school year and all they did, and I hope that they had a nice break, and appreciate it and excited about the new people who have joined us. And it's just wonderful to hear a student board rep talk about like football games and exciting things. So just starting to feel normal again. So over to you, Dr. Stepp.
Madam President, shall we bring the foundation to the microphone now?
Yes.
Mr. Maddick, if you'd come on down, President of the Foundation supporting Las Virgenes Schools, we appreciate you being here.
Members of the school board, Superintendent Dr. Chetnowski, and members of the cabinet and other guests. Are we on? All right. I'm Mark Madnick. I'm Vice President of the Foundation for Las Virgenes Schools, and it's my honor to be here tonight on behalf of the Foundation to present our annual donation to the Las Virgenes Unified School District. This year's donation is $75,000. Parents started the...
Thank you.
Very briefly, parents started the foundation a little more than 10 years ago to work with the school district to fill the gaps between government funding sources and the academic and mental health programs that our community wants for our schools. Since its inception, the foundation has raised over $1.5 million for the Las Virgenes Unified School District. Like many other organizations, the foundation experienced setbacks with the cancellation of our signature live events last year. But community members, businesses, and parents answered our call to save our schools and support the foundation and the school district. Over 200 families donated during our Back to School appeal, and many more participated in our mask sale, virtual comedy night, magic show, and our wine tasting event. In the spring, we held a very successful town hall event featuring educators, mental health professionals, and a physician to discuss the challenges and successes of parenting during the pandemic. Working with the district, this year's donation has been earmarked to support the district's strategic plan. The funds will be going towards class size reduction, centralized STEAM education in elementary schools, and additional mental health support. I'm also excited to report that we kicked off this year's annual appeal just last Thursday, and we've already received 70 donations, totaling almost $30,000.
Wow. Nice.
And what's really exciting is that many of the community members who have participated this year are participating at our VIP donation level of over $500 per family. The goal of this year's campaign is, again, strengthening and sustaining the district's strategic plan, and community members can make their donations by visiting thefoundationlvs.org. With restrictions lifted, we will be holding several in-person events this year, including another comedy night on September 30th, with tickets available soon. And our annual carnival returns to the Wisden Center on October 22nd.
Wow.
So with that, I'd like to present
That's
you
pretty
with this
exciting.
huge check for $75,000.
Thank you so much.
We can't thank you enough. We'll be down later.
We can do a group.
We'll come down for a photograph, and we can't thank you enough for all of your support and energy. These have been challenging times to reach out, but your team, President Jeannie Abrams, have been creative with all different sorts of web and remote events, and they've been successful, and we're excited about real events coming back, and so we so appreciate your partnership, your dedication, your support of public schools. We can't thank you enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please convey to your board how much. And write your check to the foundation.
Yes.
So. Yeah, on behalf of the board and the entire district, I want to thank Mark and everyone at the foundation. They do such great work, and at the end of a pandemic that you come and still continue to support us is just amazing. Please support them, support their events, support their donations. They work hard, and they really do, just tirelessly, because they love this district. So thank you so much. I can't believe we're doing this coming out of a pandemic, and here you are. So we love the foundation, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, a couple things from me. I think Mr. Klein has some slides for me. Tara Davis. Go Chargers. Laura graduate. recent graduate too. I think she's class of 2017. Graduated from University of Texas in 3 years as well. Went to her first Olympics in Tokyo. So exciting to follow her exciting journey. 21 years old, first Olympics, placed 6th in the world, which is so exciting. She did the board would probably remember she came to a board meeting to be recognized back when she was in Brazil in the junior Olympics. She brought us a little bag of dirt from her the jump, but she was setting records. She currently holds, I believe, 2 or 3 NCAA records. She does hurdles as well. If you saw my kids and my wife and I are huge fans. I mean, she's a amazing, beautiful, bright soul. She's just a bright light out there. She is 100% genuine. What you see is who she is. She is absolute kindness personified. So it's just great to see her experience the success. We watched her qualifying jump where she just made one jump and qualified. She did so well. Didn't have to jump anymore and then went into the finals with everybody. And at 21, she has many more Olympics. She's already got her sights set on Paris and hopefully LA in 2028. And she shared lots of messages of support from Agora. Many people from Agora reached out and she shared the love for her high school alma mater.
And that photo really captures exactly her personality. You know, years ago, back when she was like a sophomore, junior, she would be at Body Logic training. And when I had shoulder surgery, I was there getting physical therapy. They have a therapy dog. She would come in with the dog and just sit down and talk to me. You know, she was just the most bubbly, friendly. Like, that is exactly who you get. She is a lovely young lady.
She is the real
Proud of
deal.
her.
So much fun. So much fun to keep watching her in action. Here's our team today. We held our admin retreat. We all gathered. Had a great time with them, setting the course for the year ahead. So it's such an amazing team. We've got only one new principal this year, Miss Joanna Cooper, and she's in the green shirt in the front row. She's going to Round Meadow Elementary. And so we welcomed the newbies, some folks in new positions, obviously Ashley Winter and Kirby Walsh, who will be at assistant principals at Agora. And, of course, we mentioned Hallie Chambers earlier joining the cabinet team. So a joy to spend time with them, have some fun activities, set the tone for the year. Going ahead. Next, Mr. Klein. This morning also at 8:30 in the morning, Ms. Kimmel and Kelly Vita and I joined our bus folks. It's no longer Durham, Ms. Kimmel? Is that correct? They have still Durham. Okay, got it. So this is our Durham bus drivers. So we always greet them every year at the beginning of the year, and just want to say hello to them and share appreciation with them and remind them that they're an important link in what we do. They're the first and last adults who see our children, many of our children, every day. And so we wanted them to be empowered to, connect and communicate if they see anything, any concerns, any students who might need extra support. And there is a dearth of bus drivers right now, so we appreciated them being here as we work to fill up our routes and get operational for the start of the school year. So a joy to spend some time with them and appreciate them. And here's a picture of Miss Heidi Zerbick at White Oak Elementary getting ready. White Oak tweeted out several pictures, and our teachers are in their rooms working hard already, coming in from vacation, and hopefully they're well rested from vacation, but they are working hard to have their classrooms ready for all of their students, and we appreciate all of their hard work coming in and getting ready. We're excited too. I think that's it, Mr. Klein, right? Dr. Finneran.
Madam President, members of the board, it's my pleasure to share information about a couple of things tonight. First, welcome back, everyone. I think there's a little bit more trepidation than we expected at this time of year, but that does not erase our excitement and our joy that we are coming back full-time. We will have an information item that shares a little bit more about the details of our reopening. Wanted to share about a couple of things. One is the Administrators Retreat welcome back event that we had today, which was really just a wonderful time for us to set the direction for the year. And we did have a little fun, I must admit. So it was a good afternoon. And also wanted to share a little bit about professional development for the 21-22 school year. So I'm responsible in collaboration with Ms. Kintz and Dr. Gleason for certificated professional development. And so we'll be sharing information with our staff in the coming days about what those opportunities are. There are 3 different opportunities or buckets of opportunities. The first is a selection of opportunities that will be largely expert and consultant supported. So for example, our 4-5 teachers across the district are interested in expanding their skills with CCC, which is our ELA curriculum. That's one option in bucket 1 among about 20. And then bucket 2 and bucket 3 are also really important. Bucket 2 is where teachers and staff will be given the opportunity to develop a professional learning community. And then the third bucket is an opportunity for some one-on-one coaching. And so those two buckets are really the fruition of the last several years of our adaptive schools and our cognitive coaching work, where we have teachers and staff guiding and coaching one another, which is has been a few years coming, and we're very excited that that's in place. Welcome back, and thank you.
Dr. Gleason.
Madam President, members of the board, just learned where the button on the microphone is up here, so thank you for your patience. So I want to share a few things. So our leadership team this summer read the book Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett, and want to give a shout out to Dr. Kate Videra for bringing this to us, and she introduced us to the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence this past spring through our Safety and Wellness Committee. And it was the right book for the season as students come back in a year, 18 months after having the structure that is, a normal, typical school day. This really talks about how we can approach the different feelings and emotions that they'll be processing. The Yale Center really stresses how important it is to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate emotions, and to support not only students, but the adults that we work with as well. We had Dr. Verdera, myself, and 3 administrators, Ms. Kintz, Ms. Jorns, Mr. Lepisto, and also Ms. Liberty Logan. So 4 took the formal class through Yale this past spring. And this summer, we were trained to be trainers. So we trained about 40 of our educators who are very excited to use this. And it will be part of the one of the buckets that Dr. Finneran and Ms. Kintz will be leading this year, as well as our classified, but I don't want to spoil that. So along with that, our counseling efforts continue to be nurtured. So for all those watching, just a reminder, we have 5 new counselors on staff in addition to the staff that we had. There's a full-time counselor at every elementary site. And we've added a counselor to our Los Virgenes Independent School, and we've also specialized our counseling system at our high schools and automated it. We spent the whole summer testing that automated system, getting it ready to roll, and really excited on August 2nd, our secondary counselors came back for ongoing training, and we're all very excited about the start of the year and launching a model where students have access to really specialized academic, college and career, and wellness counseling. So really exciting things happening on the social emotional front.
Mr. Clinton?
Madam President, members of the board, the tech team, as you know, has been very busy this summer doing a lot of upgrades, and I look forward to sharing some more details of that later on in tonight's presentation. But for the staff board communications section, I wanted to remind everyone at the beginning of the year, we always have a big social media push, and we want to celebrate all the amazing things that we do here at Los Virgenes, especially on that first day of school. So remember to use that hashtag LVSD Rocks. When on the first day of school, as you see amazing things, take lots of great pictures and share the love with the whole community.
Ms. Falk?
Madam President, members of the board, as Dr. Videra stated earlier, the district again offered a robust summer program during ESY and our enrichment to over 300 students. Welcome back the special ed teachers and the district behaviorists who started officially this week. We have several trainings planned coming up. Tomorrow we will be training all of our 23 newly hired certificated staff in person at the district office. Our newly hired level 2 paraeducators will be trained on August 17th by one of our behaviorists in applied behavior analysis. For the first time in 2 years, our paraeducators will receive in-person training for crisis intervention, which I'm very excited about. And over the summer, about 30 special ed teachers participated in a state-sponsored dyslexia program.
Appearing in her very first staff comment section, Ms. Hallie Chambers.
Madam President, members of the board, first, I am very excited to be joining the LVUSD team at my first official board meeting. I appreciate all the support of the board, the cabinet, and the district office staff during this transition. I also wanted to share a little bit about the classified PD plan that we've been working on. So in collaboration with LVCA, we are launching a new classified PD website, and thanks to Dr. Gleason for his support in training me on the new website program. So the website's going to have a menu of options that provide targeted sessions for our classified employees. Our PD committee will be filming a short video tomorrow to explain the details of the plan, including where to locate the information, how to register for the sessions, and then how to document it once you've attended the class. We have several class sessions on the menu so far with topics such as how to navigate Google, like my computer just crashed right now. So Google Hacks to save you time was one of the topics, having hard conversations, and building leadership and management skills. So we'll be sending out information to our classified employees later this week regarding the PD plan, and we're excited about the direction that this is taking.
Ms. Kins.
Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to tonight thank our elementary teachers and staff members who worked very hard on committees this summer to help prepare educators for opening this fall. One of the committees is the Math Assessment Committee, where we updated two standards-based assessments that needed updating per grade level. Another is the Curriculum Integration Committee, and that committee is focusing on aligning our curriculum and thematic units. The Homework Committee is actually meeting tomorrow, coming out with recommendations for grade level, age-appropriate homework. Then the PBS, which is Positive Behavior Support and Social Emotional Learning Committee. They've met 3 times this summer and have put together some really creative restorative circle plans for teachers and SEL lessons and recommendations as well. Then we also had a new counselor training, new elementary counselor training. So I want to shout out to Annika Asmirian and Jessica Gunther, who led that training, and it was very successful and really built the team at this meeting. Then lastly, I want to also thank Veronica Escueda, who is starting our new Family Resource Center for our culturally and linguistically diverse students and families.
Ms. Kimmel.
Madam President, members of the board, I wanted to take an opportunity to give a shout out to the team. When summer starts and schools sort of close for the summer, my team sort of has to double down and get ready for the new school year. So, during the summer, the payroll department had to update all the salary schedules and process retro paychecks for all the employees for last year and get ready for the new school year. The accounting department's been burning the midnight oil to close the books for last year and get ready for this year. Purchasing department has ordered all the supplies, including our gallons of hand sanitizer and alcohol wipes to put out on the desks for all the classrooms to have a COVID safe opening of school. Our maintenance department has been doing deep cleaning, working on projects throughout the district, such as asphalting and concrete, fencing and repairs throughout all the school sites. Child nutrition hasn't taken a break in like 18 months. They've been serving free meals to our community every single day. For this last summer, they served almost, I think it was close to 13,000 meals. So they've just been going strong and going strong. And as you'll see in the slides later, we'll be continuing free lunches all next year for all students that want them without regard to the income level. And we're getting transportation up and running. Jim's technology department wrote a new software program for bus passes and to utilize PayPal and get us into the 21st century. So we're excited about that and having the buses running for the schools and sort of helping with the enrollment and the permits, the choice between the schools, the out of district, the enrollment numbers, keeping an eye on that throughout the summer. So everybody's been so busy, and I am so grateful to all of them for their hard work. So, thank you.
Dr. Cypress.
Madam President, members of the board, after a 2-year hiatus, we are so excited to welcome back an in-person new employee orientation this Thursday and Friday. It is a 2-day event, one of our finest traditions here in LVUSD for both our classified and certificated employees. We anticipate this year over 70 new employees to attend. So we are super excited about that. We're super excited to have the event in person, be here in the boardroom and here all around the district office. Among all the excitement that you will have for our new employees includes discussions and presentations on LVUSD culture, our world-famous bus tour, renowned across the district, so get excited for that if you're a new employee and listening out there, as well as different presentations from our various departments across the district, and of course, our LVA folks as well participate in the day. We're so excited to welcome our new employees, thrilled to have them a part of the LVUSD team, and looking forward to a fun couple days on Thursday and Friday.
That concludes staff communication.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, hearing of delegations and/or comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. So we have one speaker for an item not on the agenda. So if you can come up, and you have 3 minutes, Carol Izad, and state your name, and there's a little timer. You'll hear a beep at the 1 minute. And
Before you start
Turn your mic on.
timer, sorry, can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. But before I begin, I'd like to mention that I did send a letter to all of the board members, and thank you for the 2 that responded. I appreciate that very much.
I want to clarify, we have a protocol that the board president replies on behalf of the board.
Okay.
So everyone, I assure you, all board members read your letter.
Thank you.
But that way you don't get
Right.
5 replies.
Thank
So
you
that's
very
our,
much.
that's our norm.
Well, my comments tonight are based on the vision, mission, and goal statement of the state of California in regard to education. And my subject matter is about critical race theory. There is no mention in the California mission statement of public schools disrespecting the values and beliefs of a diverse community of faiths and cultures by teaching children a worldview that is in opposition to the beliefs of their parents and calling their beliefs and them racist, privileged, oppressed, oppressors, victims, etc. Stabbing a child's identity and family beliefs is bullying. The critical race and gender theory worldview is an activist scholarship that attacks those who hold a different worldview by using negative connotations, name-calling, and belittling. By definition, the meaning of worldview is an organized collection of beliefs, cultural systems that relate humanity to an order of existence. According to the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights, the government cannot establish one worldview over another worldview and mandate its people to accept the one worldview. Critical race and gender theories is a theoretically derived notion of justice and injustice. It is the vain imagination of a few postmodern theorists and Marxists in university studies based on abstract concepts that have no basis in reality or science or historical facts. CRT creates a crisis, in this case, injustice, by exploiting past wounds. Critical race and gender theories is rooted in intersectional identities and a fluid sense of morality that is socially constructed by groups and their experience. In other words, it divides people into groups by race, gender, sexual orientation, and many other ways, and then calls this social justice to hide what it really is. After all, who could be against social justice? What does this do for children besides undermine their individual uniqueness by saying their identity is determined by some group they belong to? Whose interests are being served by creating confusion in the hearts of a child? Critical race and gender theory claims to be only truth, and the proof is this claim. If you do not accept the worldview of critical race and gender theories, you will be humiliated, canceled, censored, belittled, or fired from your job. Fear is used to silence the opposition. Its advocates threaten violence when it's not adhered to, or when other points of view are offered, which has been evident at our colleges and universities for a number of years. And now they're talking about putting this in K through 12. It is enforced by using mandates requiring attendance at CRT indoctrination. Critical race and gender theories shuts down free speech and open dialogue that has been proven on our college campuses. The state has the gall to call that higher education. People of faith believe that their identity, their personhood, and individual uniqueness, as well as the moral law, are a construct of a divine creator, and that there are absolute right and wrong, justice and injustice that are eternal and universal. Parents do not send their children to public school to be brainwashed.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we're
Yes.
kind of way past time, so I don't know how much.
Just a few more sentences,
Okay.
and I'm done.
Great.
Parents do not send their children to public school to be brainwashed into a worldview that creates confusion for them and is in opposition to their parents' and grandparents' sacredly held beliefs. It is interesting that Hegel and Marx said, if you want to take control and power, create problems using old wounds, and then enforce the solution by using fear, intimidation, and division. I'm going to end there, but thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for
and
listening.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the other speakers I have for items on the agenda. Okay, moving on, items scheduled for action, consent A.
Move to approve consent A.
I'll second.
I have a couple questions.
I do
Yes.
two
Okay.
before we vote. Thank
Yeah,
you.
before we vote, sure, Mr. Lawrence.
It's the first time we voted on a field trip in 18 months.
Right.
It's kind of Dr. Vidar's first time ever voting on a field trip. It's amazing. We haven't done this in so long. I just was trying to figure out a couple things on the field trips, if we could, if you could maybe address them. One, it looks like it's all staff chaperoning. Is that correct? I believe that's the case on all three of them. Is that normal for these? And the reason why it jumped out at me is it's 254 teacher days we're going to miss with these three alone. And that just seems like a lot. I thought typically we had parents, and maybe are we not doing that because of COVID? I'm just trying to figure out, is it always teachers on this?
We have a mix, typically, of staff and parents that go on trips, typically. These trips, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Miller, Dr. Roberts, these trips we tend to have only staff, correct?
Because they're overnight trips, usually try not to bring parents. It's a little difficult spending the night with other people.
With kids that you may not necessarily know as well, yeah.
And is it usually, it just jumped out at me because it was so many nights and so many staff on two campuses. So it's like, or three campuses, really like it's a huge time they're not going to be on campus. Is it usually this many the ratio, is it usually 10 to 1?
Usually it's a little more.
Okay.
So because COVID, they've been limiting how many people can go on the campuses. So we're going to have to be a little more creative, but usually we have a lot more numbers going.
And Ms. Miller, that's exactly it. I mean, these field trips are educational field trips,
yeah,
so they're teaching outside of our school, and there's so few students that are left, that do not opt to go on these trips, which leads me, when Mr. Lawrence is done, into my questions, but that, they are then put into other classrooms. The students, I believe, really don't miss that stay behind or stay in their classrooms, don't really miss anything academically, do they?
Well, this is the honor society, so I'm
Right.
assuming you're bringing in a sub for the other class, right? when they're out, they're other
Well,
students?
it depends. But usually, sometimes there's not many kids left, so they don't bring us. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Finneran.
No problem. We do bring in subs, and in most cases, there is a sub for each teacher that is gone.
Yeah, which I'm totally fine with. I think maybe we don't see all three of them at once usually, which is why it kind of jumped out. Maybe in a typical board meeting, we get one, and 3 months later, we get the next. I know one of these is in like 9 months, so we're just getting it early. So that's fine. My only last question is, how are we dealing with the vaccination issue here? Since they are sleeping in these Yosemite cots that are tight. So can a parent request to have their kid only be with other kids who are vaccinated, since a good chunk of these kids can be vaccinated, because this is all middle school? I know some aren't over 12, but I'm just like to think through that.
Good question. Mrs. Miller and I actually just talked earlier today. We are going to discuss with LVEA some practices and protocols that we might want to put into place for field trips. And we want to work with you all on those. I think one thing that we're all in on, of course, as you heard earlier tonight, is the staff vaccination piece. The student vaccination piece we have talked about, but not at length. So we need some time to discuss that.
One of these is in like 6 weeks. So I'm just wondering, as we think about that one, that's the big one, right? Yosemite, 200 plus kids. And all those kids, I believe, are eligible for the vaccine because it's 12 and under, and that's 8th grade. So maybe we have some brilliant stars who are younger coming up.
99%
Never a problem.
should be 12,
personally.
should be above 12. Yes.
Have we thought about the concept of mandating the vaccine for Yosemite up front and getting that out there and just saying, you have time, but that time, that clock is ticking. If you want to be fully
Yes.
vaccinated and you're not, you kind of need to do that in the next 3 weeks.
We just have not landed.
Are we leaning one way or the other?
Well, first of all, we can't, I mean, as much as we'd like, the goal here is safety, right? We want students and staff to be safe. We cannot mandate, I don't believe, unless you can tell me otherwise, that we cannot mandate students to be vaccinated. So even if they're,
Extracurricular field trip activities, I believe we can.
can we?
You've got to wait. You've got to wait till you get an EUA.
We have
for
to wait
starters.
till we have the authorization.
And then for an extracurricular, we're going to review at council, but I think we can.
Okay. So that leads into my questions about, okay, so we're now into field trips during a pandemic. So speak to us about safety and masking and vaccinations and chaperones being vaccinated and
Chauffeurs, I
kids-
like that.
Yeah, and I don't know where I was thinking. Literally, I'm on vacation mode still. So, and that they're together. They're sleeping close together and being close together for days, for a few days. So,
So
can you
that's-
speak to us about the whole new world of COVID field trips?
Yes, I think what's really important here is the process that we follow, Ms. Stein, when we're looking at these field trips, when we're contemplating approving them. So as an example, one of the things that we do is we look really carefully at the processes and protocols that are being followed by the venue, because we're not necessarily in charge of the whole experience. We're collaborating with another organization. So I know Ms. Miller and Dr. Roberts, as an example, and AC Stell also is participating in one of these trips, carefully reviewed the venue, the CME and Catalina and Yosemite's protocols. So that's one important step. Another important step is that students will be expected to follow all the protocols that they're expected to follow when they're on campus. So, and those expectations will be clearly communicated to parents and to students. Probably will take our staff some additional time and probably some additional meeting time with parents to communicate those expectations and ensure that students and parents are following them and are complying. So those are two examples of the pieces of the puzzle that we need to have in place as we're looking at field trips this year. So process is the key, I think the key word here.
I don't have a problem approving these, but what I'd like to suggest to my fellow board members, if the majority agrees, is our next board meeting's in 3 weeks. At staff board communication, or at some point, I'd like to get some more information.
Yes.
I mean, we have no idea how many parents are going to allow their students to go, right, and feel comfortable about this. So if we can get some more information, at our next board meeting, which will be, if you're saying the first one, Mr. Lawrence, is 6 weeks away.
10/10, so whatever that is.
Okay, so we
4,
have time.
5,
So
6,
3 weeks, you'll have more time to go through the process and have conversations and figure all this out.
Yes, yes, we'll work with LVEA and our staff, and we can come back to you with more information.
So I don't feel comfortable voting on a field trip request without the single biggest hanging issue addressed in policy yet. I don't feel comfortable as a board member voting for a field trip for 200 kids for 5 days overnight and not knowing what the district policy is on vaccinations. And I understand that some of it's out of our control and some of it is in our control. I feel like I don't feel like that is responsible for me to do that because it blesses it as so I'm thinking, so I guess I want to ask Ms. Miller, and from a programming perspective, like if you waited 3 weeks to get the go-ahead, what does that mean for planning? I mean, you could still plan full speed ahead. Once we address this issue, we're going to be likely to vote for it. I don't want to throw a wedge in that, but I got to tell you, I feel very uncomfortable voting for overnight field trip requests without the vaccination issue addressed.
And the
Ms.
reason,
Ms. Miller, can you come to so that we can
thank you.
have a discussion
you.
with you? Sorry, so that you're on.
And the
I
reason.
didn't mean to call you out, but
No, but this is standard procedure.
I want to go on record in saying that the reason I said it's okay is my thinking that I didn't express was if you have to reserve a date now. I don't want us to hinder you not getting a date you want, but, the caveat, yes, there's a lot of open-ended.
Bottom line, can you wait to the next board meeting for approval on these? Since it's a fluid situation and protocols are changing.
Well, these reservations go out a year in advance.
Right.
So my final numbers for this are actually due Sunday. Although, since we don't have room to grow this year, we're stuck at the
140.
Yeah, including the adults too. So we can't grow. So it has to be that.
Ms. Miller?
I do have what Nature Bridge shared with me with their health and safety plan. I can share that with you all too. We just got an email a couple days ago with it.
I mean, let me ask this. So are you able to proceed with the reservation, put your hold down, and then if the board says no, you cancel, right? That's an option.
We will lose money if we cancel.
But
Yeah,
I mean, that's
lots
something
of
the
money.
District could reimburse if I'm trying to
Yeah.
prioritize in my stack ranking student safety here, as you are as well. No one's thinking
Yeah.
differently, but so I hear that, but it doesn't.
Well, what may happen is, so if the board doesn't want to approve non-vaccinated students going, you would still have the trip, but you would have reduced numbers. You wouldn't lose the space. That's what's more likely to happen, is rather than we say nobody's going to Yosemite, is that we say with protocols and with, I'm just throwing that out as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
So we're not likely to lose
Agreed.
the whole thing.
And if I could just be clear, I'm not necessarily saying that I think the district needs to come down on a no vaccination policy. If we come up with a hybrid maybe that says kids will be potted, those who aren't vaccinated, I mean, so parents, I just want to have full transparency so parents know what they're getting into, and I as a board member know what the policy is before I make a decision on it.
Understandable.
And if we can approve it subject to something, whatever that is. Ms. Miller, are they allowing less students this year, taking into consideration protocols for COVID?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so can you-
actually, so Yosemite's the different one because at Catalina and Astro Camp, we have the entire camp to ourselves.
Right.
So we are taking less people this year because the national park, Yosemite National Park, is limiting entry for anyone. You have to have a reservation to even get into the park this year at a hotel or a campsite. And they limited Nature Bridge, which is the learning company, to rent only a certain amount. And in fact, this year, they spread us out in 2 camps. So some of us will be in Curry Village and the other of us will be in Crane Flats. And Crane Flats is actually its own campus, more like Catalina. So there'll be no outside people coming into that campus. It's really just the smaller portion of kids that will be at Curry Village is kind of the issue.
Has there been any discussion about COVID testing students the morning of?
They recommend COVID testing 5 days before
Okay.
in their safety plan.
And to be double sure, what about do the rapid testing as they're loading the bus between the 5 days to then? I mean, just as, throwing out ideas.
Yeah, well, I believe that we are going to be offering testing for families at our site, so I don't see why that would be too big of a problem.
Are you comfortable, and does this work for everyone's interest, if we don't approve these tonight, but with the idea that in 3 weeks we have clarity of what the protocols will look like, but I think you understand what the concerns are and what we're looking for, right? Does that seem sort of a doable thing that we have?
I would also just suggest as an option, if Sunday is the deadline, that you have 3 days to figure this out, have a policy, and we can have an emergency board meeting on Friday on the phone virtually to vote on one item, if it's that urgent. I mean, that can we have time. There's 3 days to figure this out and come up with a policy. So I'm willing to do that, or whichever one you recommend.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, the reservation, so your reservation is for 180 kids, not 200. I mean, you don't lose the reservation, right?
Well, if we don't go this year, we'll lose our spot for the following.
Right, but
Yeah.
you do the reservation, but we'll take a hit
No, you
if we don't.
Nature Bridge is very, very popular. There's years wait list to get to Nature Bridge.
Right.
So if we don't go this year, then we will not.
No, I'm saying
sorry.
go.
Okay.
I'm saying go and you make the reservation, but perhaps the protocols that we would want to see in place to approve it mean that you won't quite have as many kids go. Your numbers won't be exactly what you tell them on Sunday. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, and I don't even know if there's going to be much interest anyways. For
Right,
family
you may,
20,
yes, exactly.
Especially as numbers are.
So
in our
do you have to have a minimum to go on the trip?
That is a great question. I think no, but we will have to pay for our full amount of kids that we reserve.
I mean, do we, as a district, have decided and internally, what is it worth sending? Is it worth sending 20 kids? Is it worth sending 10?
No, because it's optional.
Right. So, but if 10 sign up, are you going to go? That's what I'm saying. We have an internal minimum to make this go? And are other school districts doing this? I mean, it does seem a little odd, this
Yeah,
timing.
I think
So
they are.
They are.
Yeah.
That's my understanding,
My
is that other
understanding is
districts
that-
are.
Okay.
And again, I'm fine with going on the trip if I see and can vote on something that tells me what the clear vaccination protocols are for the kids. And I think that that's going to be the question I think the board and the public is going to be asking about a lot of things going forward.
Yes.
Understandable.
Understandable.
We've just moved all back to school nights virtually to limit that type of thing. So so I think if we could get to that, I don't
Well,
have.
Astro Camp, you'll have a lot of kids who aren't of age.
Correct.
Sixth grade will be even
Because you have
felony.
sixth graders.
Yeah.
Do we have to vote on Astrocamp and Catalina today to save those spots?
Astro Camp's not till 2022.
Yeah.
Right,
Wait
but
on that
do,
one?
Well, Catalina is close. It's November.
November, yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, we can wait till next board meeting for Catalina.
The challenges that our staff have been facing is holding the dates costs money. And then once, as Ms. Miller said, once you let a trip go, it's very hard to get back in the rotation because they're so popular. So those are,
Yeah, I'm not saying let it
Yeah.
go, because I think at the very minimum.
I understand.
You'd have vaccinated students go and perhaps some sort of testing or protocols. We just want clarity on what that is. So you make
So-
the reservation, but it may not be for as many kids. Am I missing that we can do, I mean, yes, we'll
We
take a
can.
loss.
it could be somewhat of a
We
loss,
have 10
but
for dinner and we have 6, so we'll pay on the reservation, but.
can we
Yes.
approve it subject to, and I'm thinking out loud here, can we approve it subject to receiving specific protocols before Sunday?
I don't feel good about that because I want to know what the protocols are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We would get them. So we would subject.
camp protocols from the AAP. I mean, kids have been going to camp all
That's true.
Mike?
I want to know what our vaccination protocols are as a district. I think I just feel like, I'm not hearing any reason why we can't pause this 3 weeks, make the reservation, lock it in place, come back in 3 weeks with a spelt out vaccination policy that the board can wrap its head around.
Ms.
for-
Miller started with saying that the Yosemite Camp has protocols in place that they require. What, I'm curious. to
Yeah, I
hear
can
those.
share. It's many pages long. I can share that with your email about what they recommend before we go on the trip and what's happening when we're eating, especially at the 2 locations, when we're traveling. We're having, one of the major things is we usually get on the shuttle that goes around, but now we're having our own shuttles. We're not sharing them with other regular folks in the valley. And what happens if someone has symptoms, where they go, it has like 9 pages I can share with you.
So the main interest of the board, just so I understand as we move forward with this process, is the main interest the vaccination of students and
Staff.
how we want to, and how we want to make that expectation.
Well, I think it's safety protocols. I mean, I think, I don't know if you get a legal opinion that you can force students to be vaccinated to go on this, that's one piece of information.
Yes, yes.
And yet, if the attorney says we can't, so what are the safety it would have been honestly nice to have the safety protocols attached to this. It just looked like business as usual when we're reading this. So,
We were so hopeful
I know.
a couple weeks ago.
No, and I'm thrilled to see field trips back. Believe
Yeah.
me, no, we all want things to get back to normal.
Yes.
But the vaccination is one piece, but it's the safety protocols. It's taking the temperature of parents. I mean, are they really comfortable doing this? I mean, I think
Not
that-
literally taking the temperature of parents.
Well,
You
right,
have to be
right,
careful
right. Not
using
spread-
that as a
right,
metaphor.
right.
I think what maybe I'm wrong, but I think what I'm hearing is they want to hear the piece about for unvaccinated students, what is the testing protocol, or can they go at all? I think
great.
it's that simple because I trust that the venue and that we have sanitary and eating protocols and traveling protocols. I
Yeah.
think that's the piece that the board is looking to hear.
Absolutely.
Am I
We
right?
can,
Like,
we can
it's
do
only
that.
vaccinated students, and if it isn't,
And
what is
staff.
the testing?
And staff.
For those who aren't, and staff, yes.
And I think that should just be a blanket policy for the
Until
rest,
we-
for the
until
rest,
things-
until this is normal for any overnight field trip
Yes,
request.
makes
Or
perfect
actually,
sense.
frankly, anything where they're on a bus together.
But I want you to go ahead and reserve, I
Agree.
fully intend that that's a satisfiable
Great.
thing, but would want to see
Well,
that.
that's why I said voting to subject to, because we really think that we can satisfy these requirements.
Absolutely.
And so I'm comfortable moving forward subject to. I mean, not everybody has to vote yes. If we have 3 votes on it, we can, and that way,
Subject to approval of
Sub-
protocols on the next board meeting?
yeah, there you go.
But what protocols?
Or subject to, receiving the protocols. I mean, the protocols are going to be what the camp does, and it's all about the health departments, right? It's going to be their protocols, and I know that they're going to be followed. They're going to be followed at the camp, like you said.
No, this is this is a difference. I don't have any concern. I'm not trying to dictate what Yosemite, the California National Park Service, or the Federal Park Service's protocols are. We are telling parents that we are going to put their kids in a closed tube for a 5-hour drive somewhere, and then put those kids in a tent together, side by side. We as a board should have a policy about what the vaccination protocol is for that engagement. I do not feel comfortable giving a blank check and voting on something saying, whatever they come back with will be fine. I think this is the first time we've dealt with it in a post-COVID environment. I think it should be in the agenda for the board to review. We should have a conversation with the legal team about what our legal requirements are. Can we legally require students over the age of 12 to be vaccinated for a voluntary off-campus event so we can have a discussion as a board, if that's our values as a district, if that's what we want. Same discussion for staff, which we're going to have a little bit later today about staff vaccinations. I think I've heard nothing that says this has to be voted on today that overrides my feeling is my
Well, I
responsibility.
think you have to do a reservation. I have no
Yeah,
problem with the middle schools pursuing those reservations.
Agreed.
So
Do you need
my
bo-
suggestion would be to pull these 3
Yeah.
pending next
Yeah.
week, but with the idea that, yes, you don't lose your reservation. We
you-
just have to work out that detail.
You've got the guidance for us. You can
Do you need
Yeah.
board approval to hold your reservation?
I don't think you do.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, then we're
Then-
going to pull those 3 items. So if who made the motion
I
to
believe
approve?
I did. So I am going to amend my motion, I've got to find it here, to approve items number 1 through 10.
Thank you.
And I'll
And with the idea that that's worked out for all kids, because the kids who are too young to be vaccinated, what does that look like?
Yes,
Because we
yes.
do have, like, the Mariposa group.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are we clear? Student board member? Would you like to? Okay, board.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Miller, we really appreciate that. Okay. Consent B.
Motion to approve consent B.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. This is a board-only vote. Do you need to?
Well, school approval, non-approval, and I'll abstain at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Board? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining.
I need to abstain because, like Mr. Lawrence said, my daughter is very excited to return home to LVUSD. She's now a new counselor at AE Wright. So I have to abstain from voting on a document that my daughter is on.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to our action items. Approval of Resolution 1-21, use of school fees for construction or reconstruction-related development. Ms. Kimmel.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight we bring before you Resolution 1-21, our first resolution of the school year. Because Ed Code 17620 allows school districts in the state to collect school fees during new development or remodeling of residence and commercial properties. These fees are collected to provide school facilities to accommodate additional students generated by construction development. At this juncture, we are opening the Las Virgenes Independent School this fall, and we do need space in order to prepare for the growth of this program. And this is needed. We have about, looks like 6 teachers and 100 students that are going to be part of this new program to our district. And the staff members will need a space and a community on a campus together where they can meet with their students and have teacher meetings and the like. With all of that in mind, we have a project that's approximately $100,000 to convert classrooms at AE Wright campus. And we are asking the board to approve the use of our development fee monies towards these projects through this resolution. So, any
Thank you.
questions?
Any questions, board?
Very exciting. Thank you. We can use, obviously, developer fees on this, so it's nice that we have a bucket of money we can put towards this, and it's very exciting.
One quick question. So you say in your cover page that usually we use the developer fees to pay on the certificates of participation. Are we required to pay a minimum on that? And does this diversion of money, does that affect the payment on?
We actually had, we do have about an $800,000 to $900,000 payment every year that we have to make. And we do have the funds to do that. And we're hopeful that in a couple of years, we'll actually be able to pay the whole balance off. But this summer, we had quite a boom of construction going on in our district. So we have collected quite a significant amount of fees. So
Really? Like how much?
it's pretty amazing.
Really?
Yeah. We had some very large houses coming through the district.
Will you make sure that we get an update on that? That's kind of
Yeah.
exciting. And
Yeah.
you're right, we can pay off our COPs sooner.
That'll
That's
be,
great.
That would be
Okay, do
exciting.
I
when we
hear a
get
motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Student board member? Aye. Board?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of 45-day budget revise, Ms. Kimmel.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We want to bring to you tonight our 45-day revise. As everyone knows, when we met last in June, we adopted our budget. That was June 22nd, and then on June 28th, the governor signed his annual budget. So in accordance with AB 1200, we have 45 days for any updates that we would like to make. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Torres, and she will be going over the highlights of the governor's budget and proposed changes to LVUSD. Hopefully, this will work.
She's muted.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kimmel. Just to share that after the governor had signed the state budget, here's a few of the highlights. It does include a super COLA on our LCFF funding of 5.07%. It also includes a compound COLA for our special education funding of 4.05%. There was discussion regarding increasing supplemental grant funding. Legislation had proposed and advocated for that, but in the final signed state budget, the governor did increase the concentration grant funding to 65% and kept supplemental grant funding at 20%. Again, this funding relates to our unduplicated students, so our English language learners and our economically disadvantaged students, our homeless and foster youth. So we do receive an extra 20% above base grant, but we're not able to take advantage of the concentration, the extra 65% based on our student population. There was also discussion regarding the deferrals that were in the 2021 year, where the governor was basically issuing IOUs for their state aid to districts for February through June. And in the 21-22 budget, he was proposing to pay off most of that debt. But in the final enacted budget, he is going to pay off all of the amount owed to districts within the 21-22 school year, and it's estimated to be within the first half of the year. So that is good news from a cash flow perspective. Another component of the adopted budget is a universal transitional TK, creating that additional grade for all districts to be implemented in full by the 25-26 school year. There's no overall change to this current school year, but it does have a phased in approach where you can see currently if a student turns 5 between September 2nd and December 2nd, they're able to be in our TK grade, part of our Senior Buttercup program. And once they turn 5, they are included in our state funding. But over this 4 years, they're expanding that birth date range. So in the 22-23 school year, if a student turns 5 up until February 2nd, they can be in TK, and you can see how that rolls out so that ultimately any child that has a 4th birthday by September 1st can be included in TK and will be part of our LCFF funding model. For the current budget year, the governor is providing a planning and facilities grant to plan for expanding TK for districts. We don't have all the trailer language yet on the details for it. We're estimating about $119,000 that might be available in this current budget year, but it's not currently being rolled into our budget just yet.
Ms. Torres, I'd actually like to ask Ms. Kimmel a question on this one. So, Ms. Kimmel, as we look ahead with the new changes to expanding TK, do you anticipate us having a big influx of students? And if we do we actually have the space to accommodate them?
I'm pretty confident we have the space, but our facilities may need some adjustments, such as the little toilets and things like that. So that'll be what we'll be identifying over the course of the next year to identify, if we add a class, at the most, I would think it would be a class on each campus. Where would they be? Do we need to add additional restroom facilities for the little ones? That kind of thing.
And this planning money, if it actually is received, do you have any ideas how you're going to spend it?
My gut says it will be on restroom upgrades
Okay.
for the TK classrooms.
Okay. Thank you.
How much of this is kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul? How many of our students will move from Buttercup to this? Like, what's the overlap there?
I think the first, this year, nothing. I think next year we'll see very nominal changes because we do have a very progressive Senior Buttercup program.
Okay.
But then, yes, we're going to have to look at it in our planning. What does that do to, is it going to deconstruct our Buttercup program? And we'll just have 3-year-olds, in Buttercup. What is that going to look like? So I know Angie and Valerie Lothian are talking about that and starting to work on what that might look like.
Is there a universe where we would lower the age since the top has been lowered?
I mean, California state law allows us to serve kids from infants up.
Yeah.
Regional center usually services all the kids up to age 2, so that's typically why we do not do that, but it is one of the things we're discussing.
But we have a gap kind of between like the 2 to 3, right? Because you got to be 3 starting, and then we're dropping the ceiling. So and potentially we could lower it to become an earlier feeder into LVUSD since we
We
now-
could, just a point to note is that the preschool program is a financial loss to the district, so expanding it would increase our loss
Yes.
on that program. So if they've got regional center services from years, 0, 1, and 2, then they pick us up in year 3. They can either stay at preschool or then go to the TK program. So
And-
there won't be gaps.
And it's something different topic, different day, but it's something I want to drill into. It's a loss because we don't charge. I'm asking, this is not a statement. Is it a loss because we don't charge the parents who aren't paid for by the government to be there such a low rate, or is it a loss because we're required to offer it for special needs kids and the state isn't reimbursing it? Or is it both?
It's a very expensive program because of the special needs students that are involved. The staffing ratio, the staffing credentials are much higher than a general preschool program.
I only asked it for us in the future to put a pin in and look at, but I had my son was in Buttercup, and it rivaled the private
Oh, it's a
school that my
fabulous
daughter was,
program.
$1,000 a month for, right?
Right,
Her friends
right.
are now spending, so, but we're only charging $600 a month or whatever it is. So, I mean, I don't know if we've done a needs or whatever, 800, I forget. I don't know if we've done an assessment of, can we raise that price up? Because the reason why I ask is, it seems like it's a great feeder program for us to capture families very early who might otherwise not ever come to our district. And
Right.
once they're in, they stay.
Happy to definitely drill down on that and look at it when we're working through these plans.
Ms. Kimmel, adding on to that, do you then see, or is it just that the cost of the program won't allow for it, expanding Buttercup? Because I know we always have a wait list, and I actually was contacted by a handful of parents wanting to get their student into Buttercup, and apparently there's a long wait to get in it, and I basically said, stay on the wait list, but go find something else. So, we always have a wait list, and I know that you do comparisons, tuition comparisons out there, but do you think there's a way to expand it so we can take more students down the line, or no?
I mean, there's always opportunities, so we'll look at all those options.
Well, I did want to add, though, because we have to balance the ratio because it's
Right,
an inclusion
right.
program, so we don't want to have an overabundance of general ed students because it really is designed to service students with disabilities. So that's why we have a waiting list. We don't have any waiting lists for students with disabilities.
Right, okay, thank you.
Important point.
Have we thought of having a typical learner program, just a standalone?
Not that I've been a part of the conversation.
Our
Yeah.
enrollment drops at 10% in the last couple of years. If there's something we can do to get people to come here early, I mean, it's something to think about. Okay.
Like everything, it's just a question of funding.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
Would you like a motion to approve?
I would.
Motion to approve the 45-day revise?
Do we want to finish
Oh,
the
I thought we were done.
presentation?
Poor Ms. Torres.
Poor Ms. Torres.
I will get through
liked
these
it.
last couple of
So
slides
good.
quickly.
We liked it.
There are a number of grants that are included in the state budget. However, without the official budget trailer bill language, we can't really fold it in at this point because we don't know how the funds can be spent, and we don't have true grants that we can apply for just yet. Here's a couple of them that we have estimated dollars as potential, but again, not currently folded into the revise at this time. There is money for expanding the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant beyond what we already have received, and the TK Expansion Grant we talked about, and the A through G Completion Improvement Grant. There's a lot related to educator effectiveness and teacher residency programs and educator learning opportunities, as well as a special education preschool grant that we'll be keeping an eye on as well. We hope to get more information released from the state in this month. The district's adopted budget did already include the final cost of living rates. Those are not changed from what the governor proposed in May. And we were able to fold in the salary settlements that happened in May, which typically we would fold in now and as they would happen in the summer. But with the earlier settlement reached, we were able to already include those in our budget. But there are two new updates for this budget revision. The CDE did change their guidelines on the COVID ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. Originally, they wanted revenues to be recognized in the year that we were awarded the funds, which was largely in the 2021 year. They now revised the guidelines where they want to see the revenue to match when we actually spend it. So as part of our strategic plan, we're spending those funds over 4 years. Here you can see the overall funding hasn't changed at $16.5 million, but the year that we spend it and we recognize it does change. So in the 21-22 year, we're proposing to reduce the revenues by $400,000 to align with the expenditures planned. And the second change is to the unemployment insurance rate. The governor had proposed a significant increase to that unemployment rate due to the number and people on unemployment. And that 1.23% was going to be about $1 million more than what we previously would pay in unemployment insurance. The signed budget has a reduced rate of 0.5%, which reduces our unemployment insurance rate by $600,000 of an improvement.
Just to clarify on that, the rate increased significantly 100 times over, but it's not as large as we had expected from the governor's original plan. So,
yes, you can see going from about 50,000 up to 400,000 is still quite an increase, but it's not as much as our $1 million that we had in the original adopted budget. And then here you can see an overall view of what our adopted budget was, with a $122.1 million of revenue, $133 million of expense, and a net loss of $10.9 million, with the two adjustments, both to reducing the revenue for timing the ESSER funds and reducing the unemployment insurance by $600,000. There is a $200,000 improvement to our fund balance, but still projecting a net loss of $10.7 million.
and with that, that's the end of our report. This is the timeline of when we will be meeting again. We've got Finance Committee coming up the beginning of September. And at that point, we'll be able to review our unaudited actuals from last year and how that might impact the next year or the current year's budget at this point. And we are open to answer any questions.
Just to ask, as we do every time, because I think it's important for people to see the disparity, are we still, even after this, looking at a state where LVUSD is getting 50% less per student than the average in the state of California?
I mean, we could possibly see that gap grow with the increase in the concentration funds.
Mm-hmm. So it's already, so it's still 50%, and it could be even worse.
Correct.
Less funding than schools just
But
down the
then
street
the
from us.
neighbors to the south, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Bottom
astonishing.
15%
Mm-hmm.
of 1,000 districts, but we're going for the bottom. Whether we want to or not, we're going for low.
We'll be number one at
Yep.
the bottom.
Yep, thanks. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Torres.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yes,
Second.
thank you. Approval of the 45-day revise. Student board member? Aye. Thank you. Board?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Independent study. Approval of board, sorry, not approval. Well, yes, 6158. Dr. Gleason? Is this, oh, sorry, Dr. Finneran.
All me. Did you want to say
Or
anything,
Dr.
Dr.
Stepp.
Stepkowski?
I'll let you fight for it.
High freeze, somebody. They're a doctor in the
I
house.
just didn't know if you wanted to intro.
Dr. Kimmel, Dr. Chambers. let's throw this one your way to see how it goes. Independent study. The fascinating part about this is we know we had many discussions here at the board in closed and open sessions about independent study last year, and here we are with the state making it a requirement. It is partially a requirement because the state has removed the ability for us to have virtual academy. So I know we had many families who were fans of it.
That was a program, the largest program in school district history, that we put together in 3 weeks. I think it was phenomenally done and executed under duress. Regardless, I think there were political pressures, winds, events, occurrences, and the governor was interested in schools opening up, so they removed the large amount of flexibility that was in place to allow us to operate virtual academy. So you'll notice there are no schools out there, public schools operating a virtual academy. We had begun a process. We relaunched our independent study last year and had planned to make some substantial enhancements to it and increase support and structure before this legislature law came out. So we were well positioned for this. I can tell you many districts are scrambling. We've got a lot of K-6, K districts that have never had independent study, and those superintendents were losing a lot of sleep. So we appreciate the board's support and vision in helping us launch this in advance of legal requirements. So this was not a heavy lift for us. We have Dr. Roberts here with us who will be leading that program. We're excited to have his expertise and leadership there. I know he has fielded many phone calls and many emails and helping folks understand what we have available to them. And I appreciate his kindness and his assistant principal's kindness and support with individual calls and conversations, because it really is an individual call and conversation kind of thing. By its very own nature, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's really a program designed to support students who are, that the typical conventional structure doesn't fit. So we're excited to have this here and present it to the board. Dr. Finneran.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, this agenda item has kind of two parts to it. The first part is information about the current status of Las Virgenes Independent School, or ELVIS, as we are calling it for short. And so we'd like to talk to you a little bit about the enrollment, the program, the staff of ELVIS. And Mr. Klein, I know we have slides when you have a chance. And also, simultaneous to that, we need to share with you a board policy that is as a result of Assembly Bill 130, which was signed in the middle of July. And all districts are expected to have adopted Board Policy 6158, I should say, make adjustments to the current Board Policy 6158 that they have that match the state expectations. I'll share a little bit about that. Different one, Mr. Klein. Okay, I'll share it with you. Dr. Roberts, why don't you come on up and we'll talk about where we are with enrollment.
Right. So for clarity, for the audience watching, we'll talk about our ELVIS and our independent study, but our board policy is some housekeeping that we have to do before the first day of school because the legislature have required it. So it's really clarifying and bringing that into line with what we're doing. So we'd already had this in place. So I'm just wanting to reiterate that for anybody because this is very new, what we're doing here.
I think the motivation, I think that the impetus for passing AB 130 was really geared more towards districts that may not have kept as strong a track of students.
Right.
That's not the right word. You know what I mean? As we did last year. And so I really think that was the driver. And so anyway, we, as Dr. Stepnowski said, as Ms. Cutbill said, we already have a lot of these pieces in place. We just need to be compliant so that we can actually launch the school and serve those 150 or students. Dr. Roberts will share a little bit about facilities, enrollment, and staffing.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President and Board. Thank you for having me here this evening. ELVIS has been a very hopping place here the last couple weeks, that is for sure. And that's in many facets. So as you can see up here on the slides, thanks to Mrs. Kimmel and Mrs. Pacetto, they've been working tremendously hard to build a structure so that we can hold students and teachers inside the in-building. This week alone, they just started finishing up those classrooms. And right now they're currently painting, and hopefully we'll have some teachers moving inside their classrooms in the next couple of days there. So teachers are excited about that, and we're working to finalize that part there. So next part. As of today, and this is still pending on some numbers here, but the elementary we have for K-5, we have about 65 students signed up for that. Many of those students are wanting to take like the virtual learning option that is similar to the VA that we had last year, where they would have Zoom lessons with teachers and have daily check-ins. And some of the requirements of the new Assembly bill is for kids in K-5 to have those daily check-ins with it. So what we're planning and what the state has required, and we're aligning to that very closely. There is a few students that want to take that independent approach that where they will check in with a teacher for 1 hour every 2 weeks at minimum to go over their coursework. But we do have a variety of students that are in the program for participating in sports, competitive sports, where they're practicing that, parents that are traveling, work industry, COVID concerns. So we do have a wide variety of students enrolled. At our middle school level, we have about 30 students right now, and our high school level, 69. And as of why we're sitting here, I probably have a few more that's pending in my application hopper right now. So I have probably fielded, I'm going to guess it's probably close to the 40 conversations with different families over the last week and a half. And like was mentioned earlier, a lot of conversations, it's individual to each parent. So I've been very consistent just talking to them and sharing the facts of everything that we have about the program, how we can better serve them, how this might help them, and how we're moving forward there. So I anticipate the numbers to probably go up a little bit over the next few days there, but we're holding steady there.
What, if any, what is our authority to say no? You want this because you want to, I mean, when we initially talked about this, one of the things we did not want this to become was the loophole for athletes and actors. We discussed that as this can't become like, this is where they go so they can have their flexibility. So what is it anybody who wants in gets in, or do they have to be reviewed and they have to, I know they have to sign an agreement, a contract, but I mean, what is the protocol to be in this program?
Yeah, so that's part of the Assembly bill. That's 130 that's coming up that we'll review a little bit. But as right now, if they apply, I look through there. If they're in good standing, meet the requirements of sort of given the reason why they want to go in there, and it's either COVID related or they are traveling or whatever else. The biggest requirement right now that we're looking at is if a student has an IEP, before placement in there, that IEP team must meet to look over that student's needs, and then that team will determine. So we do have a handful of students that we will be holding IEPs in the next week or so to see if they can get placement in there. With the Assembly bill, it's set up to try to get kids in there and have them have that option, and so it does open the doors a little bit more for them. But with the written agreement, we do have a lot of stipulations that are in there that if they're not meeting the needs of showing up on time or being interactive and being part of the lessons, that they could lose their place in the independent study program. So there is a lot of stipulations that they do need to follow and be engaged in that process.
So the Assembly bill, though, was specifically trying to create flexibility for COVID-related concerns, correct?
Correct.
It was not about scratching a broader itch on an independent study, statewide patchwork. It was COVID was the cause for it. We brought it in place. But what I'm trying to get my head around is, if I'm an athlete and want to only check in, and I'm want to travel sports, these types of things, and I want to check in with my teacher once every 2 weeks, which is one of the options. Can I get in? I don't have any COVID concerns. I want to go be on a travel league. Or are we saying no? That's not what this is for.
Yes, especially the 9-12. So if students are playing CIF and participating at the high schools, we're telling them that this is not the option for them, but they need to stay on campus and work with their counselors and work with the athletic directors there. So if there is a case where they need one class or two classes, they can work through the shop or center at the two high schools and get those couple classes there. But to work with the CIF and NCAA, we're recommending that they stay on campus and be part of that program there.
Thanks.
We do have a few in the K-8 that are doing some. I know we have a family that has very competitive skiers that spend part of their time in Mammoth on the U.S. ski team for their age group. And so they wanted that flexibility of part of the program to be able to be on the slopes during the day practicing, but then getting their work done. But if they do not follow up and meet the requirements of where they need to be, they'll be pulled from the program.
Right.
I would just say, as one of the board members who had really serious concerns about adding another spinning plate to the list of things, but like trusted the process, I'm thrilled that you guys persisted and pushed forward to get this done, because it clearly we would be behind had we not moved forward. So,
Well, we were reluctant for independent study last summer when we were trying to set up a virtual academy, because that was confusing to parents, what was the difference and the subtleties and everything's in the details. So,
Dr. Roberts, do you anticipate with the Delta variant, the where it is right now, seeing a significant uptick in enrollment?
Probably half of my conversations that I've had with parents have been about the Delta variant and wondering what their options are, asking how to apply, what will the school day look like, if they want to go back to in-person learning after their kids are vaccinated, what does that look like? And so having a lot of conversations with them, saying that, communication is going to be the key. So if they're ready to go back after being vaccinated, that they need to reach out to me, and we'll schedule a plan on how to get them back. But one of the things with the Assembly Bill 130 is if they request to go back, it's 5 days that we have to get them back inside the classroom.
Right.
that's right.
Well, thank you,
have
Dr.
to
Roberts,
move
for
on that.
taking this on. Do you see an issue with not having enough staff if you have an uptick in enrollment?
Right now, we're good with staffing. Now, if we had a major increase, that we would have to work on some stuff there. But right now, where we're at, we're staffed appropriately.
what is the to tag on to Ms. Stein's question? I'm trying to remember. The bill allows for a back in, but it doesn't allow for a revolving door, does it? I mean,
No,
you
we
can't- is it-
we can say no to them going back in.
And you have to know, is it the first 30 days, within the first 30 days of school, you have to have opted for the independent study? And
So
if you
the
haven't by
first-
then, you've lost your window under the law to do it, is that right?
No, the first 30 days that's out there is having them signing the written agreement, because they made some changes to the written agreement.
Okay.
So for that, so the plan right now is we have the written agreement finalized to match all the AB 130 requirements. And so all our teachers and case managers will work with their families to go over that written agreement and share with them what is expected of them. If they don't, here's what's going to happen and how they might be exited out of the program if they don't follow through.
Okay. If they go into independent study, but then vaccinations come out for kids under a certain age and they want to get their kid vaccinated and they want to bring them back, but then all of a sudden there's a COVID spike variant and they want to go back, we can say, look, no, the law doesn't force our hand to say, yes, you can keep going back and forth.
We could hold them to not going back in. We can. But, if that's where I'll meet with them on individual cases and see what their needs
I'm
are.
not saying we should, I just want to know
yeah.
what the flexibility is.
So that's where I'll have that flexibility. Like I've talked to some families that said they've lost 10 family members to COVID. So, after talking to them on some stories their story might carry a little bit more than some others, depending on what that is there. So it's working with them, and that's why I'm trying to be a little bit of the point person on a lot of the communications with family, to be consistent and keep the same information with them. The biggest thing that we're asking for with parents when I have my conversation with them is to look at those placements back. So K-5, ideally, we'd want to try to do, if it's vaccinated, do like trimesters, because that's fair to the students to get appropriate information. And then for our secondary kids, we're looking at semesters, because if they're taking courses, we want them to finish their coursework and then go in there. And most of the parents, almost all of them that I've talked to, is very receptive to that, and they understand the importance of that. So they're just appreciative that they have an option to go back.
Okay, thank you.
Just some of the basic information. Each student is assigned a case manager. So our K-5 teachers will have their kids. So we have a K-1 teacher who will meet with grades kinder and first, and then a second, third, and a fourth and fifth. And so they will meet with their students and teach them their daily Zoom instruction or meet with them. And then our 6-12 will meet with students at least 1 hour every 2 weeks, but it's going to depend on the student. If the student's thriving, excelling, it might be that minimum, but if they need a little bit more support, they might meet with them a little bit more. So listed below some of the daily instruction. So K-3, it's daily instruction and daily contact with those students. 4-8, daily live instruction, and that could be just interacting with a peer, joining on, having a quick conversation, just making sure that the student is active and being part of their learning process. And then 9-12 is at least weekly instruction. And those could vary between talking to them, doing an assignment, connecting with them, and making sure that they're staying on task. Staffing for our K-5, we have 3 full-time teachers is what we have allocated and working with there. Middle school and high school, we have 3 full-time teachers covering both. So that those 3 teachers will cover approximately 100 students right now, and we'll have a caseload of about 30 some each, and we're working on having families with that same case manager. We have an art specialist that we're going to utilize there to, offer an art program for our 6-8 kids so that they could have a daily Zoom check-in as one of their options of a class. She's also going to build in time with the K-5 students to offer weekly art. We're going to have a yearbook for the K-8 students, and we have a few other art options available for the students to build upon that. We have a .2 PE teacher that will work with our K-5 to make sure they have that instruction there covered with their minutes, and working with some enrichment programs. One of the biggest things that we had that was a big hit was doing an after-school hike with students that were just going down here. So we're going to offer some of those in-person opportunities for families and students that feel comfortable being outside. Administrators in charge is me and Mrs. Jantz, my assistant principal. Counselor is Miss Kelsey Hollingsworth, who has served with me at A-Wright the last year, but previously served at Calabasas High School and has a lot of high school experience along with middle school experience. So she's fitting in extremely well, making those communication with students, making sure that their caseload is correct. Miss Eve Stout is my office manager. She is supporting me in those needs. And then our attendants should have filled here within the next week or so to make sure that we're compliant with all those pieces.
Great. And just to highlight a few things, this is an action item, a little bit of an information item, I suppose, with an action item. We are asking the board's approval on the modifications to BP 6158, and just some highlights of these changes. They do need to be made prior to the first day of school. Nothing like Dr. Stepanowski said, scrambling across the state. We have reviewed these. CSBA obviously has reviewed this, and as has F3, and has suggested that it's just fine for us to approve on one reading. I did want to share with you on the next slide, Dr. Roberts. So a few things that are important to note. One is we have to notify all families in the district of this option, which we have done actually more than one time. We do have to have some type of conference or conversation with every family that is interested. As Dr. Roberts shared, he has been doing that. We will continue to do that. We do have to have this rather complex parent-educator agreement that has a lot of expectations, and they're really mutual expectations. They're expectations of families and also expectations of us. And there are also high expectations for us in terms of the documentation of student attendance and progress that are incorporated into AB 130. So as you'll see, we've attached the CSBA sample, the revised struck out board policy, and then the clean copy of the board policy. And then simply for the board's information, we did attach the AR, which we would also move forward with.
I just have a procedural question.
Please.
So you addressed my question in advance, but the reading the board policy and then coming back and voting on it, a separate meeting, so seeing it twice, is that just our board's procedure and we're waiving it this time?
Yes, we're waiving it because we're required to put this in place before the first, rather than to have another meeting before the first day of school.
And we're able to waive it without?
Yeah.
Yes, we checked with
That's
council.
just our best practice, is to bring something once and then bring it back as an action, bring it first as an information.
Okay.
So that's not a legal thing, but fair question.
The goal being to allow the public to have because basically board policy is law. So basically it's an opportunity of the public have an opportunity to really see it before the board
I just
adopts
wasn't
it.
sure if it was a board policy to have
The assembly
board
made us
policy-
do it.
Right.
To have the board policy I wasn't sure if we had a board policy that said it has to be read twice, which if we did have that, and it is our law, we
Right.
couldn't just waive it.
It
So-
may be in our board bylaws,
Which would be
actually,
different.
but yes, it is in our board bylaws. But as
Different than
Dr.
policy.
Stepp and Dr. Finneran just said, they got a special privilege to do this, so.
Right.
Would you like a motion?
Yes, I
You
would.
ready? Okay. I'll move to approve the revisions to Board Policy 6158, independent study.
I'll second.
Thank you. Student board member? Aye. Board?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to item of information, reopening report. I know we have two public speakers, and I do appreciate your patience in waiting for getting to this agenda item, but I'm going to ask everyone's patience that we see the presentation first, because that may answer some questions, or it may inform other questions that you may wish to ask. So, because it's fluid and because I know these slides change always up to the end of time. So, Dr. Stepp, if you'd like to.
Absolutely. Madam President, members of the board, here we are, the main event. Tonight, we are excited to be welcoming our students, all of our students back for in-person instruction next Wednesday, August 18th. These are the values that guide my work, my team's work, and the board as well. And of course, that is staff and student and community safety. Those lead all of our thoughts and all of our decisions. We're in almost daily contact with state and federal and local safety agencies. I think probably I receive 20 emails a day now from those different groups. Of course, after that comes quality academic instruction, and of course that means in-person instruction to the extent practicable and safe and allowed by public health. And as we come out of this pandemic slower than maybe we expected, we're paying very close attention to social emotional needs of our staff and students and supporting them with many, many things in place, including dramatically expanded counseling and full-time counselors at all of our elementaries. Since we've never done this before, we obviously expect a lot of excitement to be back, but of course, there will be levels of anxiety as well. So this is us. We've said this all summer long. There was lots of rumors in all different directions, but we are doing it. But I've said this many times last year, and it still rings really true, and I'll continue to say it. We're going to stay flexible, and then things will change. I promise things will change. I promise the thing you don't want to change, maybe the thing that changes. Really, these slides, we've had to update them this morning because we developed them late Friday, and things have changed since late Friday.
Yeah.
So I promise some things will change between now and the start of school, and we'll respond quickly as we have for 18 months, and we'll respond prudently and quickly, and really the well-being of our staff and our students is paramount in our mind. And again, I think kindness and gratitude really matter. We're all humans. I promise you, we're giving it all we got. And we've spent, and I know the board has spent countless hours, meeting with people, talking with people, responding to emails. So we care. We're giving it our all. We're listening to everybody. We're talking to everybody. We're gathering every piece of information. And I couldn't be more proud of the work they're doing. I know the staff is excited to be back on campus with students. So kindness and gratitude go a long way. Next slide. Sure, you're up.
Actually, I'll go ahead and take this slide. We had some successful summer programs, and some of our board members mentioned them tonight. Nearly 700 students were served in them. Find My Genius was one that was mentioned tonight in partnership with the YMCA. 100 students. It's a great program. Students who need support in reading and math, and they do a lot of fun activities too. Camp Bellevue Learns. Also, we've had board members visiting, and the photo on the right is the coding activity in a first grade class, and this is B-bots. So they coded which direction the little B-bot would go to make the path through the numbers. And I'll let Director Falk talk about the experience school year.
And as I said earlier, we had 310 students attend either our extended school year and or our enrichment program over the summer.
It really was so wonderful to visit our summer programs and to see, as several of our board members shared, these programs in action. As far as our grade 6 through 12, we did have more middle school students participate in our, we did an expanded middle school opportunity this summer, which essentially was a credit recovery type program. We had 185 students complete freshman seminars, and we had 269 credit recovery courses completed.
We get a lot of questions about this also. There are really 3 agencies driving the state of California's response to the global pandemic, and they are, of course, the governor's office, the CDPH, California Department of Public Health, and LA County Public Health. Each of those agencies can add extra requirements and layers on top of that, and of course, they get recommendations from the federal CDC. So, there's emails and phone numbers. I'm sure we have some speakers today who have some opinions for us, and we're certainly welcome to listen to them, but really things like masking requirements, those sorts of things, distancing, those come from LA County, CDPH, and the CDC. We have at the very beginning of this reviewed with our attorneys, and they absolutely have the legal authority over public agencies to make those sorts of opinions. So folks who feel strongly about issues, and I know we have a lot of them, and that's awesome, please reach out and communicate with these agencies. Next slide. We're excited. August 18th today. We've shared out our family resource guide. We'll share more information today. And we have a webinar tomorrow at 3 o'clock for staff and community that we'll get very granular with as well. That will be recorded. Will remain on the website, so you can of course watch us in action live, and of course you can also watch it again if you enjoyed that much, or catch it. It's challenging when my own team is laughing right next door. We plan on it being worth every penny you pay. Next slide. Get vaccinated. Big topic for all of us, of course, all over the media. My daughter and I participated in the vaccine trials. My daughter remains in the vaccine booster trial. So I'm a big believer in science, a former physics teacher. And so we encourage everyone to get those vaccines. We partner with Albertsons, Savon, Kaiser Permanente, and we had 4 vaccine clinics last year. There was a shot from one of the vaccine clinics, and over 2,300 people, staff, students, and community members were vaccinated. Next slide. Here's some of the data. You've got almost 72% of LA County residents, and this is all from LA County Department of Public Health, with vaccines. This is as of Friday. On the map to the left, you can see our region is in the 75 plus. So we're right in here, obviously, our cities, that little corner. And on that, we are, of course, just inland from Malibu and along the Ventura County border. Part of our district is, in fact, in Ventura County, the Bell Canyon. So, relatively speaking, our region looks good on the vaccines. Next. Here's the actual numbers. Ms. Kimmel updated these this morning. So that's actually from August 10th, I think. We didn't change the date on there. And all of these bumped upwards. Our staff is over 85% vaccinated, which is phenomenal, around 935, and that's from, we do not have specific data, and we're not prying into our staff's vaccination status. That's really loose records we have from vaccination clinics and our estimates of staff coming through. City of Aurora, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, those are all of their numbers as well, and these are vaccination rates for 12 plus. And they all went up about 2% from Friday.
So our staff could actually, the vaccination rate could be higher. As you know, I know some staff members who went out on their own to other places to be vaccinated.
I think there's a good chance for over 90%. Our staff has taken it very seriously, and of course the convenience of being able to participate in the clinic literally outside those doors right there helped. Next slide. So the good question always is, what's the youth vaccination rate? Of course, the vaccines are only approved, there's emergency use authorization for 12 years and above. And actually, our youth are more vaccinated than our adults. So you've got 79%, 82, 94, and 75. So these are not Las Virgenes students, but they are. I would gather probably 96 or 97% of those are Las Virgenes students, and those are phenomenal rates and very encouraging to see. Next slide. A lot of great data out there. We know the vaccine is the best way to protect yourself and your family. Even in the rare case, if you have the vaccine, you will not go to the hospital. There's some of the data from LA County Public Health. Unvaccinated individuals in LA County account for 99.6% of COVID-19 cases, 98.7% of COVID hospitalizations, 99.8% of deaths, and this is from December 7th to June 7th, and that is LA County Public Health Department. So this vaccine really is a moonshot to have something this effective develop this quickly. You know, some people thought it could take 10 years for this, so something this effective this quickly really is significant. Of course, unvaccinated employees are at greater risk of contracting and spreading it within the workplace and the community. So that second piece there, the data there, moves me very much. I know, the board pays close attention to the science and the team as well. Next slide. And that brings me to this. We will be requiring vaccinations of our staff. Why? Morally and ethically, it's the right thing to do. If I have an ability to protect my staff at 99.8% effectiveness, wow. Protecting our staff, our students, our community, maximize the effectiveness of our instructional environment. That's why we're here. That's what we do. 26 years in education. This is the right thing for us to be doing at this moment. What is it? The vaccines are required for all eligible staff. And so eligible, that's a very important word there. We will engage in the interactive process because there are very legitimate medical reasons and potentially religious reasons out there. So we will have an interactive process to review with our staff. I am a cancer survivor. We have a number of our staff going through challenging medical circumstances, and we want to be very sensitive to that. But of course, the goal of vaccines is that many, many people take the vaccine so that that small population that cannot, for very valid reasons, doesn't have to. We're protecting them. We anticipate FDA approval any day. Dr. Fauci has said he expects it this month. So we will be asking our staff to submit, and I've already had a number of staff replying tonight that they're submitting and excited about this step in this direction. So within 35 days of FDA approval, you've got 3 shots available to you. Johnson & Johnson is 1 shot. The Pfizer-BioNTech shot is a 2-shot, 21-day between them, and your Moderna vaccine is a 28 days between them. So 2 important dates, which we don't want to confuse. Our staff that is not vaccinated or cannot get vaccinated, really regardless of the reason, we're going to begin testing them August 23rd. We're going to give our staff some time to get that vaccination information into us. Basically, I think it's a week and a half. So that will begin August 23rd, and then once we have FDA approval, that could be tomorrow, that could be in 2 weeks, that could be in 3 weeks, whenever that happens, we'll allow for 35 days, again, for them to share with us their vaccinated status. And then we know, of course, that after your second shot, you've got another 14 days or so before you realize the full benefit of vaccine. So that's not what we're seeking here. We're looking to verify the second shot. Next slide.
Mr. Stepanowski, I assume that you will be sharing this tomorrow in your webinar. This has been a question that many parents and staff have been asking. So I assume you will share this in detail tomorrow in your webinar.
Absolutely.
And as far as students, can we mandate students to be vaccinated? And who is the, I mean, I know the answer to this, but who's the determining body that that declares that students must be part of the immunizations that are required by school districts?
Sure, there are required vaccines for P12 students. Those vaccine gates or checkpoints are kindergarten and 7th grade. And there's, of course, a whole bunch of things in there, the MMRs, that kind of thing. Ms. Foster could probably give you more details on that. So the state legislature, Ms. Stein, is the organization that sets that. And I do expect at some point they will add this to the vaccine requirements. Of course, there's a lot of research going into whether this will be an ongoing shot or not. My guess is, since there's a lot of research into boosters, this will be an ongoing shot. The state will probably not do that until it's received full FDA approval. And we don't have an emergency use authorization shot right now for 5 and 12-year-olds. The latest I heard is hopefully sometime in September, maybe October for that. I know there's a lot of medical professionals and scientists working hard on that. So I think the state, to answer your question more directly, the state is the agency that does that for us. And I don't see that happening until there's full FDA approval, which could be sometime away.
And to clarify, public universities are under a different authority. Just because like UCLA requires it doesn't mean. Thank you.
Yep, the state legislature drives this for us. I believe they are considering some legislation that will, in fact, several assembly members have shared with us that they are working on legislation that will support employers and support school districts with exactly what we're moving forward with right here. Next slide. Health metrics, they're generally concerning trends, obviously. The one that I watch, the leading indicator, is the infectious rate, and that is dropping. I am excited to share that. As Here's a sort of a clip from, I think I have a source on the bottom there, covidactnow.org. It's a site I've watched. It's a very reliable site. Excellent data in there that they update really every day. So the infectious rate, that is obviously a leading indicator on where this is going, has dropped from 0.45 to 0.15. You really want to see that below 1. That once you get below 1, then you're reducing your numbers of transmission. So positivity rate is basically staying stable around 6.2%, but so we'll hopefully look to see this number continue to drop, and that will be light at the possible end of the tunnel. Next slide. I believe we are now passing it over to the capable hands of our district nurse. She's been a phenomenal asset and resource to all of us. Obviously, she got into medicine to keep people safe, and she has done that and worked very, very hard. It's been a joy and pleasure to work closely with Ms. Foster. And Nurse Foster, you're up.
Madam President, members of the board, thanks for having me. I said in June when I was here, nobody was more excited to have kids back on campus than myself. I mean, Dr. Stepanowski says he is too, but that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So as far as going into this school year, districts around us and ourselves are not requiring that students or staff members do the daily health screening. We will communicate information out to the families though to let them know that you need to do a check-in before your kid goes to school to make sure that they're not sick. Parents are familiar with that process. It's been kind of ingrained even when summer school started and we only had a few ESY students on campus. Gen Ed parents were still continuing to do their daily health screening. It just was part of their day at that point.
Are we going to require the app and the picture you got to show still, or is
No.
it just
No.
Yeah, okay. I don't know.
And then as far as travel goes at this point, there's no quarantine currently. There's some recommendations with regards to testing when you return home, paying attention to how you're feeling again during that 10 or 14 days after you've gotten home.
And that's a confusing part for all of us. I even, during the board meeting, received an email from our parents, we're going to remind parents, when they travel to quarantine. That's gone. There's no requirements at this point to quarantine. I think the requirement for international travel is testing prior to boarding a flight to the United States, but that's it. When they return here, there's not a requirement for a family and students to quarantine.
Correct. And of course, if you're not feeling well, staff or students, you need to stay home. Next slide. COVID testing. So just another mitigating strategy that we have to keep our students and staff members safe. All the school sites are going to have access to a self-swab kit. We still have some of our color kits left that we could use from last year, and then we're moving to an easier process where the person will swab their nose, it gets placed into a card, we drop some reagent on it, and it will give us 2 pink lines if they're positive, or there will be no lines if they're negative. It takes 15 minutes, so the person can swab, they can put their swab in the card, we can drop it, write their name on it, write a time on it, they can walk away and go back to what they're doing. If it's just one of our staff members that we're doing for surveillance screening, if it's somebody who's symptomatic, we of course would hang on to them and not allow them to go back to where they were. So this will be available for all staff and students, and currently no one is saying that we have to test. This is just an extra layer of protection for us that we're doing. No testing with sports at this time either. Next slide. And then we're going to continue to monitor for COVID symptoms. It's going to be monitored while they're at school, and parents are going to monitor this while they're at home, and we just would ask that they would keep those sick kids home. Next slide. This is a piece that's definitely changed from when we left school before with regards to who's going to quarantine. If we have a vaccinated staff member or student who's been exposed to somebody who has COVID and they don't have any COVID symptoms, they're going to remain on campus. They can continue to go to school. They can continue to participate in their sports activity. The teachers can continue to teach in the classroom. If you're not vaccinated and you're exposed, those people will have to quarantine for 10 days, just as we did before. There is an option at this point that you can test on or after day 5, and you can shorten your quarantine to 7 full days. So that would mean on day 8, they can come back to the classroom or back to their activities. However, if you're just somebody who tests positive, you're going to have to quarantine for 10 days. There's no option to shorten it. It's just 10 days that you get to stay home.
So this slide is a big deal, and it could be confusing for staff and parents, because this is an addition, this is LA County added this on top of CDPH.
Right.
So Ventura County does not have this. CDPH has a modified quarantine for vaccinated or unvaccinated. LA did not allow for that, so if you are not vaccinated, you are going to have to quarantine it, not vaccinated and been exposed. This is huge for our staff in keeping our classrooms up and operational. So this is a significant difference, which a lot of us are looking at.
And I also want to add, these are the requirements now, but the only thing that's been a sure thing the last year and a half is change. So I know that we're adaptable, we adapt to change, but this is how we're starting the school year as we know it with all of these requirements.
Correct.
Excellent. Back to me. Face coverings, that's been a topic throughout the summer. CDPH never changed their guidance on this. Staff and students were required to wear face masks coming into the school year. Obviously, we hope the pandemic went a different place, but that did not change. That was not the case. So face coverings have to be there. They are optional for our students when they are outside. Of course, we are encouraging our teachers and staff to look at bringing their classrooms outside and teaching from there as well, and distancing. Next. Karen?
Yes, classrooms are going to be cleaned every day as we did last year, but we will be using the electrostatic disinfectors only once per week. We will continue to be using our air filtration systems 2 hours before school starts in the morning and keeping them running all day long, and having doors open to encourage the fresh air in the classroom. And we did purchase quite a bit of hand sanitizer and the antimicrobial or alcohol wipes for the classrooms, and we'll have everything stocked, masks and extra things that the teachers may need available to them. We will have some new procedures for visitors and volunteers on campus. The volunteers will need to show proof of vaccination, and they will be very limited, just a few in the classrooms, helping out primarily in the younger grades to help with those classrooms. So very different look than pre-COVID. And as noted, I think earlier this evening, that the meetings and events will continue to be virtual when they can be. Back to school nights will be virtual. And when we do have things in person, they will take place primarily outside if possible, but anything indoors for now, face coverings will be required.
As it relates to athletics, currently right now, our sports and extracurricular activities are incurring. So we've had all of our student athletes working hard this summer, and our coaches, and they're in accordance with the state and local guidelines. The guidelines are very similar. Whereas outdoors, students do not have to wear a mask. It is an option if they choose to do that. We do not have the official guidance just yet from the California Public Department of Health. We are still waiting on how it looks for indoor sports. In the interim, we are requiring that our student athletes wear masks indoors, but that will likely change depending on the guidance that we get from the health.
I'm just curious about that because both my little kids were in basketball in our gyms this summer, and the EYSO, EYBA, did not require them to wear masks indoors. So that I just assumed that the state then had walked away from indoor mask requirements. If they're letting elementary age kids in organized sports be indoors, so you're saying that for CIF they have not adopted that yet?
It's been a fascinating thing on my end because we keep awaiting the guidance from public health, and we haven't yet received it. Our challenge is, our sports are rock and roll over the summer. Our athletes, our coaches work, 12 months out of the year. So we've said as a district, hey, we'd like the masks on until we get those requirements.
Okay, so some districts are some people are just reading no news is good news, take masks off. We're saying we want to have clear guidance.
For indoors, that's our current recommendation.
As far as extracurricular and co-curricular activities like band, orchestra, music, theater, all those other wonderful things, they will continue to have class and rehearsals outside with their protective equipment and inside with face coverings.
Can I ask about this? Because I don't get this for outdoors. If we're allowing kids to eat lunch with no longer having space requirements, sitting right next to each other outdoors without their masks, this to me seems ridiculous for the ban. If it's outside, I mean, so
the requirement from CDPH or LA County? LA County, they have to rehearse outside.
no, we're just outside, all for rehearsing outside.
You're saying the PPE.
But the fact that they should have to wear PPE while outside rehearsing, when they're not required to wear PPE, when they're sitting this close to each other at lunch, is that a county guideline or is that our guideline?
County.
And I think it's because of the expulsion.
Yes, maybe there's a vapor,
The
there's
aerosol.
yes, they're playing instruments.
Two football players lining up are spitting on each other a lot more than these guys who are playing it.
Really?
No, not more, no, that's not what the evidence shows.
Trumpet
Instruments.
players, my
Yeah.
brother was one, they spit a lot. It's confusing though.
Yeah.
You've got people tackling each other. For me, the sports piece, basketball, really, and, my daughter's
All
captain
over
on the
each other.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way more significant than football. A, you're indoors, and B, you are, guarding each other in close quarters the entire game, essentially touching each other. In football, you're tackling them up and away, so most of football is not really in close quarters. So
I just wanted to be clear, because I know that you have to, music has to be outside and you have to be masked inside. The county is actually saying you have to be masked outside as well for music. Are you sure about that? But not for lunch?
So Ms. Kimmel, the PPE for music looks a little bit different, correct? So the music, there's PPE that goes on the instruments.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like, and I'm not a music student, but the opening.
Yeah,
to
like
the
something on the
horn
end of the
is
horn.
Not,
That's not
this,
necessarily.
Like this one is, I mean, I watched this, they're wearing it while they're outside, putting their flute through their mask, and I'm just like.
But Dallas, you realize when you play the flute, you've blown into like a full tunnel, right, to make a sound?
Sure.
So the air comes right out.
I know, but they situate the kids, they're all at the patio, they're
But
all
we're following the
separated.
guidelines, right? We've decided that we've
Yeah,
agreed
I think the
upon
question is,
guidelines.
it is required for the instrument to cover the bell, right? They have to play outside, so your question is it also required of the face?
Yeah.
Ms. Kimmel, you sure about that? We'll double check it. Ms. Foster, do you have any guidance on this one?
I think it's recommended. Is that not the case, Ms. Foster? I believe that's the case in LA County.
So, yeah. Playing woodwind instruments, you have to be outside when it's done as a group activity. Using the bell covers for the openings of the instruments, specifically designed bags, to minimize the generation of droplets. And then distance. I mean, I think that's the other thing, is distance is our friend when it comes to this kind of thing. And then, like singing, you can do indoors as an individual, masked, but you can't do it indoors as a group.
The county was much tougher and brought music back later than sports. This is consistent with that. I get that there are minor inconsistencies in that, why this, not that.
I'm just ready because it was the one thing the musical students complained about was that picture. And that seems to me to be, and what I heard you say, it doesn't sound like the county's requiring it.
But, what I heard was that they just play together. And if this allows them to play together, then there's no conversation.
And as Dr. Videra and I worked on, PPE, we got emails from music teachers, and they were so thrilled to get the PPE to be able to play together.
I heard from the music boosters, help us get the PPE. Our kids want to play together.
My point is, I don't believe the county's requiring this.
I didn't hear that either, and we'll clarify.
So if we're not requiring it, let's not
Okay,
post on
if we
students.
can move on, we'll clarify that and get that information out. Thank you.
So for recesses and lunches in elementary, even though distancing is no longer required inside or outside, face coverings are optional when outside, we are going to stagger our recesses and lunch a little bit more than we did before COVID. So we learned some things through COVID. And one was when students had fewer students to play with, they forged these friendships that they wouldn't have forged before. And we found that it was really good for their social emotional health. And so besides that, we are staggering lunches so that when students are eating outside, there are fewer students at the tables at each lunch period and fewer students on the playground at each recess.
So staggering lunches is huge, and Ms. Kim missed one thing, and they are going to be eating lunch with their teacher as well.
Oh, yes, they're seated with their classes. Thanks for reminding me about that.
So we can help manage, movement and distancing and all those sorts of things.
One of the positive things about the new year is that we've received a grant to continue offering lunches at no cost to all families who would like them. So we will be rolling that out. Expect a little bit of uncharted waters the first few days because we have no idea how many of our families are going to want this opportunity, but we have a process where it should go very quickly. We're just uncertain about how demand will be for the first few days. But we're ready to ramp up or down as needed. And the one thing that I believe somebody asked about earlier was the free and reduced lunch applications. That whole long application is no longer required, but for our state and federal funding process, we will push out, after school gets started a couple weeks from now, we'll push out an abbreviated, quick, 2-question form so that we can submit to the state and federal government for our income eligibility. And school buses will be running. They will be normal capacity on the bus. The windows will be open, and we also have air conditioning on all of our buses. So we will be ready to roll. The big requirement is masks on the whole time. It's basically an indoor roll that we could be masked on.
Shared this earlier tonight, but worth restating. So we have full-time counselors now at all of our TK5 schools. As a district, we've added 5 counselors to our staff. We've also, as mentioned, but again, we're saying we've created a specialist model at our high schools, as well as automated appointments for students to have easy access to 3 specialists at their sites. Communication will be going out to our community about that. The target date is tomorrow. The site will be live. We've been working on it together with the Safety and Wellness Committee all summer, so really excited.
And we're also very excited about full-time art and music specialists at each elementary site, so 100% at each site. This will help our students with their creativity, so they'll be performing arts, music, theater, as well as visual arts. And also weaving in those social emotional lessons as well.
And then, as you all know, we did remove those 3 staff development days, or I should say we replaced those. They are now student days. So we're hopeful that that will support our students' needs. And just as a reminder for the public, the first and the last days of school have not changed. We also wanted to mention that we do have a full-time intervention specialist at each of our secondary schools.
All right, tech team is thrilled to be able to continue to bring great advanced technology to our teachers. We are continuing the applications that we purchased for learning for the pandemic, as our teachers have advanced significantly in their use of technology with students. So they will continue to have access to all of those applications. We were also, through additional funding from the pandemic budget, we were able to purchase additional laptops for students. We kind of caught up on some of the backlog of laptop refreshes. And we added iPads for our TK2 students. So we are in the process of acquiring those. It's been a little bit challenging with chip shortages out there. They've been trickling in, but you can see we have some on campus or in our building now. Some of those iPads are actually being etched and ready to go to the classroom. We have been pulling fiber optic lines to boost our internet speed at all of our campuses. Top center pictures, fiber optic being pulled in. Those teeny tiny threads at the top are all individual fibers that cast light and send network signals through. So on that one, you've got 24 strands of fiber coming through between our building and the right, significantly boosting your internet access speed. We are receiving new switches trickling in again, like everything else that we've been out installing at the school sites, and we've done a number of other infrastructure upgrades to improve the overall performance of the Wi-Fi, and with the expectation that as our students return, our teachers have much higher expectations of technology, we'll be able to meet those.
And then, as you heard earlier this evening, we do have our Las Virgenes Independent School as an option for our families. We would encourage any family that has any questions or is wondering, is this the right thing for me, to contact Dr. Roberts. And LVIS is housed at 80 Wright Middle School, and so just so you're aware of where that location is, and the phone number, and of course the website are there. An important thing to mention for the 21-22 school year is that we will be continuing to monitor student progress, both academic and social emotional progress, in frankly as many ways as we can. We'll be using Rally, which is the tool that we began using last year, and we'll be doing those quarterly social emotional assessments. We'll also be using RenStar, which is a academic assessment. We'll be using that. We'll also, of course, look at GF rates, and then there are plenty of other formative assessments that are program specific and grade span specific that we will be utilizing. And we'll be working with you all in terms of what kind of data study session would you like, what kind of data would you like to look at this fall that might help us to move forward and hone in on our goals. I also mentioned during my staff board communication the opportunities for certificated professional development. So certificated professional development this year, a change is that the 19.5 hours is optional this year. In years past, it has been rolled into the staff members' salary schedule, whereas this year it's optional. And so staff members will be choosing from those three categories of opportunities. And we've worked hard to create a robust breadth of opportunities for our staff. Ms. James.
So classified PD. This year, classified members have the opportunity to participate in optional professional development outside of the workday. So employees are able to earn up to 2 additional days of pay for attending the sessions that I spoke about earlier. The LVCA PD committee has been working on creating a new website. That's a one-stop shop for all things related to professional development. And we'll be sending out communication later this week with the menu of options, a FAQ section, and a short video as well. And I shared a little bit in staff comm that I'm very excited about our Family Resource Center that Mrs. Veronica Escueda has set up. And it will be a centralized location for our linguistically and culturally diverse students and their families. And Mrs. Escueda already works with a lot of our EL families that just speak Spanish. And so this resource center will house many resources for multilingual families, and they'll be in many different languages. And we'll also support one-on-one help with like navigating ARIES and navigating some of the digital platforms that our students need to access to be successful in math and reading and other content areas. So this is a really going to be a huge.
Remind me, where is this located, the M building?
Oh, M3, yes.
And more information tomorrow, or the webinar, it'll be live and also recorded and left on our website.
Thank you, Dr. Steph. I'm going to go straight to our public speakers and thank them for their patience and take them in order. So you can state your name. I have Sam Gagliani. Hi. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here for the whole evening. And
it was awesome
that we got to that. So,
I learned a lot.
So you can state your name for the record.
Yeah, Sam
please.
Gagliani, Calabasas resident. Is your mic on?
No.
Sam Gagliani, Calabasas resident, 10-year-old twins that go to Chaparral. They're very excited about going to school in Dallas, but they're also scared. So here's my question. It's a pretty simple question. I put it on Nextdoor last night, which was a big mistake. Because I just wanted
And
a
you
why.
got 300 answers, right?
I just wanted a why, and unfortunately, I got a bunch of political stuff. And
yeah.
it's
Okay.
just, I'm a science guy, so look, I just want to know, and maybe this is for Nurse Foster. In light of the Delta variant, what factors, science, data did the district take into consideration when it was decided not to mandate testing and social distancing, while LAUSD, Santa Monica, La Cañada, a few other school districts surrounding us are doing it? And sorry if I'm not
Well,
talking with the mic.
Okay.
And today I just heard that you guys are doing a field trip to Yosemite or something, and you are going to do testing. So just the alignment of your testing protocols don't make sense to me. And then Dallas and Dan, to put it into military terms, because I know you're ex-military, when your enemy starts to change tactics, you redeploy and you adapt. So this is Delta. So I'm curious as to who can answer that question. And if we can't do it today, maybe we could follow up with data, or I just don't know who to ask. And on Nextdoor, I did not get an answer.
Okay. I'm
sure there's science behind it.
Social distancing precludes us being back in school full time. And we'll happily take the trade-off of masks for social distancing because the county, we cannot from grades 4 on up get our kids back to school full time. And we think that is very important.
For sure.
Testing, if you'd like to talk about, LA Unified's testing of kids, I can personally, and I know other board members can, attest to the anxiety and the stress of kids on Sunday night throwing up because Monday morning they're getting
I have
tested.
friends that are in LAUSD.
I'm
that
sure
are,
some is not the case, but
anecdotal.
I'm sure that there is.
I just want data, is what I want.
So is the testing you're asking about, just so I'm clear, you're asking about testing for
Kids.
students, not for staff?
You're asking
For
for kids.
kids,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
So in LAUSD, my buddy, his kid every day, once a week does the test himself. He's 8 years old, not a big deal. I know some parents find it offensive. I think if we can test and we can show, personally for me, that this Delta variant is so contagious, it's so prevalent, and we don't know until we test. And I feel like I'm sending my 10-year-old twins into this factory of germs. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. I just want to know based on testing. So if there's data behind it or if it's a feeling, some sort of science is what I'm looking for.
So CDPH and LA County are not requiring it. Our data, our experience with it, we tested every one of our student athletes last year for 3 straight months. So 2,000 a week, there was no material health benefit.
Correct.
None.
Prior to Delta.
Sure.
Yeah. So Delta's different. Will you agree?
Sure.
Yeah. So don't you think we should maybe be testing because Delta's highly transmissible and very
You
contagious?
asked about my experiences.
Huh?
You asked about experiences. It did not give us any material health benefit. In fact, disrupted and created a bit of chaos with some false positives. So we're not going to start the U.S. surveillance testing. We
Okay.
are going to be testing our unvaxxed staff, as we shared earlier. It's on the table. Everything's on the
Okay.
table.
So you would consider if the positivity rate increased and you started to see outbreaks in classes and whatnot.
Sure.
So if I send my kid to school and somebody in their class gets COVID, how will we know if the parents don't report it?
Well, we get information from the county all the time. They call us if there are cases, and we do contact tracing. So a nurse foster is probably going to spend most of this year doing that in constant communication of, we have
But
a case
what
of
if
White
the
Oak, here's a
parent
White Oak.
doesn't report it?
I mean, I suppose if their child is home and they don't let a health professional know and they keep their children home, we won't know it, no.
But
So
what if the
that means-
parent sends a COVID positive child to school, which has happened?
And they're asymptomatic?
They're symptomatic.
Our teachers watch for it, our staff watches for it, our principals watch for it.
Okay.
Like,
But you understand where I'm coming from, right? Like,
100%.
I'm scared. Obviously, I'm scared.
Sure.
But I think there's a couple of anecdotal data points that are also important. They're actually not anecdotal. They're hard facts. I mean, we had 10,500 kids on campus for at least 100 days consecutively. If you all at once at one point, some kids were on campus for longer than that. Not one issue. Not one.
Totally
issue
agree with
of-
you.
And I know that Delta's different.
That's what's
but-
scaring
but
me is
this
the
was
Delta
in
thing.
the purple tier when the numbers were off the charts, and not one instance of transmission linked on campus. So I think we need to. So that's one. But I am curious as to the operation, how we would operationalize testing. Is it every kid is done Sunday night on a home kit and then it's uploaded, or
LAUSD does a great job. Philadelphia is doing a great job. So those are two
LA
examples.
Unified has no plan on how to
really
test every one of their students. They have no plan.
Okay, so I guess it's individual schools that are
They
doing
haven't
it.
done it yet.
They're
right?
testing
It's
on
all paper.
campuses.
It's all.
No, they,
it's
no,
all
they haven't done
paper.
it. Yeah, no, they haven't done any of it.
And I don't think we have data, right? Because we haven't had Delta until
Yeah.
now. We haven't mass tested children,
Okay.
asymptomatic children, which is what you're asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And basically, the tests were not designed to test asymptomatic people. Okay? And so your chances of getting a false positive are in there too.
Okay.
And I think that was an issue that we didn't really want to open up, okay, because that's what we chased around too. We are absolutely relying on parents and our families to do the right thing.
I hate to say this, but I just
We
don't
know
trust
that.
parents
Fair.
right now. I'm sorry. Based on what I saw last night next door, people are literally
I
like, I'm
trust our
sending my kid to
teachers.
school no matter what.
Listen, if there's a kid who comes in with a sniffle or a cough,
Yeah.
those teachers are going to hear it, okay? And
But it totally
Okay.
get it. If
And
it's
they're going to send them
asymptomatic-
home.
I
They're going
think
to
at
send
some
them
point
home.
You have to evaluate, these are the protocols in place.
Yeah.
How comfortable are you? I would be comfortable, but I think this is a family decision.
I agree.
So
It's a risk
I-
tolerance factor, right?
I'm-
Like,
I'm
That's why you have Elvis.
very.
There's a
very
risk-
proud,
there-
And that's why we have the
Yeah, no,
Elvis, the independent study, which
yeah,
made-
I want my kids in school really bad. I definitely don't want them at home anymore.
Right, okay.
I mean, my wife's going nuts. I really want this. I think what would get us over would just be testing. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is other school districts are doing it. And so we're wondering, why aren't we doing it?
So can I
I
ask
think
the
that's
question?
my
To be
question.
fair, we
First of all,
haven't seen them.
there's
do
very
it
few
yet.
districts doing it. The only one I'm aware of is LA and Santa Monica.
Well, but no.
Every district in Ventura County is not doing it.
Okay.
Every district that I've talked to, Palos Verdes,
What about
San
Pasadena?
Marino, Culver City, Beverly Hills,
But
Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach are not doing it.
Okay.
But just no one's doing it yet. So it has to continue the military analogy. No
Yeah,
man survives
thank
the
you.
first shot. So how would that be? I'm just want to think through like how would we operationalize that? Is it the kids take home? Is it an at home test, or is it they come in, the nurse does it at the door? Every kid is lined up, so a campus with 2,000 kids.
For your 5-year-olds, it's a nightmare. I mean, do we trust them to self-swab? So now we're going to ask our staff. It would have a major impact on instruction.
No, that's what
You
I'm
would
trying-
lose a lot of time in the day testing.
That's what I'm just trying to understand because I think it sounds great on paper. I think on paper, I would love every kid. I think we would all think it'd be great if every kid could be tested.
Yeah.
And come in, and it's great. But I'm trying to understand the concept of so we would have a health clerk do it in person. The kid would swab. We would wait 15
Well,
minutes.
to be candid, I don't have a plan.
No,
Yeah,
I'm-
we're not, yeah.
So if you want me to
Can't talk
hypothesize
how we're
about
gonna
what
do
the
it.
plan would be.
And
Not asking,
I'm
but that's
mindful of
the
the fact that
theoretical.
I need to get to my other speakers too who have waited. So
LA Unified's plan is doing 20% of its students and staff every day. That's all I know.
And it's the kind of test where you come, take it, wait 15 minutes before you go inside.
I don't know which test they're using.
Well, if we want the science, Dr. Videra said that the test is not designed for asymptomatic people, correct? Dr. Videra, do you want to add anything else?
And it depends on the incidence of the disease in your community, okay?
Mhm.
And we are not in LA Unified. Okay?
Correct.
We are not East LA. It is very different. It doesn't mean we don't pay attention, doesn't mean we're not affected by it, but we are here. And so I'm really,
So by here, you mean the bubble of Calabasas?
Well, I don't mean it's a bubble.
Okay.
But it is, okay, each community is different, okay? And so you have to keep that in perspective too.
So just, and I know we need to go,
I think at some point, we're not going to be able to satisfy that you would like us to be testing all our students now.
That's not the question I was
But
asking.
I know, but I'm just saying, and things change. And, when I've had people ask me, say, well, what's the first day of school going to look like? I'm going to tell you that not everyone is going to know.
Okay.
I have a close friend whose spouse has been in Cedars for 4 months straight. And every single day, the protocols are different.
Yeah.
And she's like, the doctor's like, today is like required vaccination to even get in the door. So if Cedars, a leading hospital, is changing and pivoting as this thing goes, then we are too. I'm actually quite hopeful. Delta surged early in the UK. My husband's from the UK. We lived in the UK many years. A lot of my friends teach in schools in the UK. And it's been going down consistently every day for.
I know that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're going to get with this, but I do know that this district has been responsive and has put the safety of kids and staff.
Not
first.
questioning
That's all
that
I-
at all.
And-
Just
and
the
can I-
data is what I wanted.
I'm interrupting. Our vaccination rates for kids here, okay, are double. the
Correct.
national
My kids are
average.
10,
Okay,
so
double.
they're in elementary school.
I
They're
think
not.
your
yeah.
fears
Yeah,
your
here.
fears are
You
100%.
know where I'm coming from, right? I'm not being crazy here.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I
you're making
really
the.
need to, it's supposed to
Yeah,
be
I
like
totally-
a
yeah.
3-minute limit. I'm so sorry, but I have 2 other speakers
Yeah, for sure.
who've waited, so thank you so much for coming. We do appreciate it. We do hear what you're saying.
Thank
We
you.
do value people coming down here to tell us what they think. So I have Kara Frank. Oh, Frankie, sorry, Kara Frankie. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I have a 9-year-old going into 3rd grade at Mariposa. Dallas, our kids went to preschool
Yeah.
together. So hi, nice to
Yes,
see you.
good to see you.
So the CDC recommends masks, distancing, and testing especially if you're not distancing. So I know, Angela, you said in order for us to have our kids back in school full days, we'd go with masks over distancing to make that possible. So can we, I'm just going to piggyback on what Sam was saying, can we then, I want to really drive home the importance, I think, to mandate testing of students. Again, I can't have my child vaccinated yet. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm pro-vax. We're on board for it, but like Sam, I'm scared to send my child to school next week as well. So what is the contingency plan for today, not when it becomes emergencies with an increase in the positivity rate? Because as we've seen with schools that have opened across the country, schools are closing because the spread within the community and within schools is high. So I just want to know what your contingency plan is today, what alternative learning plans are in place, and how will it be communicated when staff, students, and teachers test positive? Because I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. Personally, I think if we don't do testing, we can say there's no spread. Our numbers stay low. And I don't know if that's toxic positivity. I appreciate Dallas wanting to withhold a vote about field trips when those protocols clearly haven't been established. So that was news to me tonight. With school opening on Wednesday, again, I'd like to see and hear what your contingency plan is for school spread.
So I guess the first question was, what's going to happen when positivity rates rise? They're going to rise. They've risen many times. If LA County there's no contingency plans. The positivity rate has gone up and down. At the peak, it was 22%, and we were open in January at 22% positivity. So that's going to go up or down, and LA County Public Health is going to make a decision. CDPH is going to make a decision on opening or closing schools, and/or we will. So if it reaches a place of untenableness or we're concerned about safety, the board have the ability to shut schools down, and/or LA County Public Health and CDPH.
And it will be returned to
we'll go back
school
online.
or whatever we experienced last year.
Go back online. What was the other question?
But there's no discussion about that. The goal is to keep schools open at this point. There's absolutely nowhere in any systems any talk of closing schools
Right,
again.
but my point is that you've had 19 months to come up with a backup plan when this happens, right?
We have the plan. We'll go back to virtual.
Yeah. If the numbers go to where we're shut. I mean, we're driven by our county and our state health department who, we follow their guidance. When numbers go up, we did a pause in January when we were back open when numbers reached that level. So, that is the plan, is we pivot as the situation evolves. I mean, I do think we've been very responsive. I mean, even Fauci said today, we just change, we pivot.
And the challenge was in January we had 22% positivity and 0 transmission, and there were 3 school districts open, one open, and there was no problems. It was scary.
Dr. Steph, I also want to add,
people
what was
were
the
concerned.
vaccination rate then? See, the key is the vaccinations. So as the vaccination.
But my child is unable to be vaccinated.
Today, correct.
Correct. And this month.
But what
and
she's saying is
next
the
month.
vaccination rate of the community is changing
So,
that.
so
spread.
I think you're asked, if I'm hearing you right, and this is the question that I heard from every parent at soccer practice this week, which is the what if question. What if rates go up, please God, don't make us go back to what it was last year. Like, tell us there's something else in the plan or tell us what the plan is or what it is.
I mean, honestly, I'm really fortunate, and I do not take for granted that my child is academically solid and did not need any extra support. So he was able to thrive on Zoom. I had no problem with that. It's not ideal, as we all know. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
No, but I'm just saying, but I think what you're hearing here is that there is the plan in place. We have to pivot with the lessons we learned from last year, but that we are not in charge about whether or not this school district closes down or not. It'll be forced upon us by LA County. Like that is up. So that needs to be really clear. Like LA County is the one that put the restrictions on us last year, that handcuffed our district's ability to open our schools. It was this board's ability, lobbying LA County, to get them to change those restrictions that allowed our schools and every other one to open. Literally, this board is the one that went to the county repeatedly and said, you've got to change your rules. So you have an all-in board here on making sure that we have, schools open, they stay open as much as we can. So as much as we can mitigate that risk with all the curveballs that are coming,
Sure.
I hope parents hear that.
I do, and so that's going to go back to the testing, right? So I have a friend whose children live in Granada Hills. They're doing a PCR test within 72 hours of returning to school, elementary students, and then weekly rapid tests to hopefully prevent the chaos that you say was experienced by weekly testing, because I do know that there are false positives, especially if you're asymptomatic. But I'm just, I think it's foolish of us to not implement as many strategies as possible since the CDC is recommending it. I know it's not a mandate in LA County, but it is a recommendation.
I think I would love to see at some point when we have a breathing room to the point of contingencies, I'd love to see how we would operationalize testing if we had to.
I think
if
we'll
we
be
got there.
informed a lot by if LA Unified is rolling this out, how they do it, because there's a lot of concern in Sacramento about a district that size trying to do this operationally. So, I mean, we will certainly have.
We're just so different
And
than
I
them.
have a
that-
We are
colleague-
so different from them, yes.
And I have a colleague in West Los Angeles who, yes, she teaches at a private school, but they did daily mouth swabs. And so it wasn't, and if they didn't catch that student on Monday, testing them every single day because it was a mouth swab, they were able to pick up over the course of a period of time whether or not that child was positive.
Dr. Videra, did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
that gets then was that really a positive or not? And was it confirmed? So,
Well, I think
begs all those questions.
If
But
it's a false positive, why not then get further testing, right? If we're all in this together and we all want safety and we all want our children to thrive and send them to school, I think doing as much as we possibly can, especially since we can't physically distance, is needed.
I think it'd be helpful if the board could see at some point in the next couple of weeks what that would look like, the resources, how that would.
Sure, everything's on the table. I am a never say never guy. Everything's on the table. I will tell you, I appreciate you saying test everybody. I will tell you, the parents who experienced their kid being yanked out of sporting events their senior year when they had 5 water polo meets, it created chaos. So children who haven't been in class and get false positives and have to wait another 72 or 36 hours and miss 2 days of school,
I'd rather that than
okay,
a family
I tell you, a
member
lot of parents wouldn't.
Oh, a lot of
So I
parents wouldn't.
appreciate where you're coming from. The parents who experienced it last year did not appreciate it, I promise you.
Dr. Stepp, I think it's worth weighing all the options, and I know
Of
you
course.
have,
think
and I
we
know
always do.
Yes,
I mean,
know.
we hear you. We
Yes.
hear you. We hear your concerns. I think, I agree. We never say never when nothing's off the table. I mean, we are, but
Yep. We did 2,000 tests a week last year.
yeah.
And as we're sitting here, there is breaking news. If I can pull it up. The governor plans to announce tomorrow that California will require all teachers and school employees to be vaccinated or submit to regular COVID-19 tests.
Oh, wow, the governors did that. Wow.
See, that's the thing. We whatever
So-
I tell you, I promise it'll be different.
Right.
in the week.
To the end of the meeting and things change.
Okay. Thank you for
I
coming.
think we hear you. We hear you.
We definitely
and-
hear you.
Yeah, I don't
We
want to take up any
appreciate.
more time. Thank you.
No, we do appreciate you coming down and sharing your perspective and your view. And we know it was important for you to sit here and wait through this so that you could
Sure.
could
Thank
share
you
with
for
us. So we do very much. We hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I have Allison Nelson.
So, hello. Thank you very much, Madam President and the board. I'm pretty much going to say a lot of what they just said. So I think we're going to just echo more of the general concern and fear that parents have. Just to give you a little background, my daughter is also same age range. She's 10. We came in, funny enough, you guys were talking about Buttercup. Made me want to talk about Buttercup more at some point. So we were basically a feeder from Buttercup. We moved here for the destination district. And that's a whole other conversation. But I feel like part of the concern that I have about the reopening guidelines is that it feels honestly like we're just going with what's being mandated, and I'm looking for more leadership, and I'm looking for more big moves. The idea that we can have our kids at recess without masks, we're going outside, no masks. I feel like that's really dangerous and an unnecessary risk, especially when we're not able to, if you think that we're not able to test. I agree, I wish I could see testing. I wish I could see more of social distancing protocols. It was very alarming to see that it was almost a celebration point that there was going to be no social distancing. And my daughter is a very high-need IEP student. Virtual learning was a slice of hell. Frankly, everybody tried, but it was really pretty much impossible. So the independent study option doesn't feel realistic to us. And yet, so being told if you have a risk fear that you should do independent study, it doesn't apply to all of us. So that's where I really feel like, not just for my daughter, of course, but for all of the kids, that we should think about making some of those changes and making them this week. I understand that some things we have to come up with the protocols, and it takes time to figure out how to make testing work and those sorts of things, but mandating masks outside, you can do that. You can do that right now. And I wish that you would. I also really want to know what the notification policy is with regarding to exposure. Who finds out? Is it only if it's a positive rate or positive test? If there's suspicion, does the class know about that? I think that's pretty much, because they covered so much of what I wanted to talk about. So it's sort of heartening in a way to know that there are so many other parents who have similar concerns, because I think so many of us frankly felt like, we're watching everybody do these kind of, I don't know how to put it exactly, like these sort of big maskless play groups and sporting events and all these sorts of things, and the rest of us who are nervous and scared about this just don't feel listened to, frankly. I had a lot of parents who felt like it was useless for me to come here tonight, and they felt the same way. So while we appreciate so much of what you do for our kids, I can't even imagine the logistical nightmare and heart and time that you have to put into doing for our kids. So I hate to, I'm a writer. I hate, having to get too much criticism too. So, but I just feel like it's important to talk about that. So I think it would really make a big difference to really look very hard immediately at social distancing when it comes to being outside if you aren't going to require masks, and especially for lunchtime. I'm sure Dr. Videra could speak better to this, but it's like, it really, really freaks me out that my kid's going to be sitting next to a whole bunch of other kids without their masks eating. Why? I understand that to a certain degree we can't have the cohort kind of separation. That's not realistic for a full day. I get that. But something in the middle. I feel like this was this very drastic move in the other direction.
So what Ms. Kent shared with us, which made me feel really good, was that they are going to stagger lunches.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to be lunch as it used to be, where, I think like the entire school, right? Or
pretty much it was like a few
1
grades
through
at a
3,
time.
and then 4 and 5, however that worked. Okay. So there will be more separation, and there will be more space, so they can spread out. And our kids kind of know these kind of things by now, and they will be eating with their classrooms, with the teacher. And so there will be more separation, which that makes me feel a lot better, because I've had that question from friends who have elementary kids too. And thank God we're in California. We can be outside as much as we can.
Yes.
Right?
That is a good fortune. Yeah.
So, and I hear all the parents and your concerns. I really do. And it's, I wish I had a more professional word to say other than it really sucks. Okay. And it really stinks for kids right now. And it makes me really angry that we're back here again. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I hear you. I hear the concerns. I wish I could say it'll be fine. And I think, we have great leadership. I know Dr. Stepp is really taking this all very seriously. We all are. But, we really want to keep kids in school, not to put them all together and get them sick, but really to forge ahead. And if we have to do more testing, we will do that. I know that, we'll open to whatever we have to do.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I mean, I want to just reiterate that we have to think ahead. We have to be proactive with this, and waiting to do testing in a month when the spread has come through or something like that happens feels short-sighted. And I think that we should look at that, or at the very least, like, create a culture where that is something that we need to be prioritizing.
Consider, like, everything every day. Like, honestly, I think we're sort of exhausted from all the
considering.
I mean, it's not like we're not like waiting for the county to tell us what to do. We have to. Sometimes they tell us on a Friday night what Monday morning is going to look like.
Sure.
We have to pivot. But I think we look at everything above what they require and what they require and how to do that. So I know that's not any, really comfort or doesn't really address your concerns, but I do know that this team up here thinks about every one of these issues every day. And as this changes, there's constant asking of, how do we roll that out? What would that look like? Like, we've had endless talks about LA Unified versus what we're doing, how do we do, what's the value? I mean, these things are talked about all the time. So, and we do appreciate, and I can't tell you what, next week, next month looks like, but I can tell you that this, I feel like deeply that we care about kids' safety.
Dr. Stepp, do you want to address masking outside?
Yeah, if you want to talk about masking
and
outside.
social and the distance in the classroom, please.
Sure. I mean, social distancing worked last year. So if you want zero transmission, we should socially distance. But you're not going to have full-time school. You're going to be back to what we had last year.
And again, I know that not everybody agrees with me, but I would rather the cohort model with more safety
Sure.
than the full.
And I promise you, I have 5,000 parents who disagree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
we get all the emails. We read them all. I get, I'm drinking what you're pouring. I totally appreciate where you're coming from. I'm just saying that's what the give and take is. CDPH reviewed it this summer, and they said it's more important to have kids in classes. We're going to relax the social distancing requirement, because we realize the harm and damage done when kids aren't in school and with their teacher. Giving up on that, this was their calculus. Giving up on that social distancing rule, that's when they said, well, 100% we need the masks, because that's sort of your last fail-safe. So that's CDPH and LA County calculus. What was the other part?
Masking outdoors.
Masking outdoors. Right now, it is not a requirement. It is one of the things I think that LA County Public Health could change the quickest. Transmission outside is 20 times less or safer than transmission inside. It's a stagnant air that's not moving that creates a real challenge for you, which is why airplanes are relatively safe, even though it's a relatively small space. So it's that air movement. Outside, you've got good air movement. The benefits for us are we do want kids to have a break. We do want kids to be able to see each other. We do want to use those outside spaces for instruction, where teachers and students can see each other's faces outside, distanced as well. So we are purchasing a number of tents to facilitate that for outside spaces. So, but that's something, again, that's on the table. Everything's on the table with me. I am a never, never guy.
Yeah, I will say, with talking to other parents, testing, the outside masking, and the vaccine thing for teachers, which luckily the governor took care of for us, are our big concerns. That seems to be something that everybody's talking about. I understand the emotional, believe me, my daughter has trouble reading social cues. I understand the emotional aspect when it comes to what masks can do, but masks could be our key to keeping open and keeping our kids and our teachers safe. So I think it's really the smallest price to pay. If my daughter with high need autism can wear a mask like a trooper all day, then everybody else can too.
I want to be clear. I'm glad the governor did that, but
thank you.
We did it. We had already determined that.
Yes, but you were waiting. You were waiting until the FDA thing. It wasn't going to be at the beginning of the school
He's
year.
going to wait too. He has to wait too. He can't mandate.
Yeah.
The governor can't mandate before
Yeah.
FDA has clearance. But I just want to say
That's good to know too.
I want to address something that you shared, because I think it is perfectly okay to be scared. I am terrified right now about sending my kids out into the world, period, let alone into school. However, I've seen what we've done in our classrooms. And I've seen the training our teachers have, and I honestly feel like there probably is no safer place for our kids than in LVUSD, especially our elementary kids. The protocols we have in place for elementary kids, I mean, it is, you're all elementary parents here, but I I don't want you to feel bad about being scared, and no, neither should the other parents. It is, I mean, I am terrified every day when I'm going to get the email that says there's a kid in the classroom that popped for COVID, and then I have to worry and wait and do the days.
Yeah.
I think every parent's gone through that in the last year, where they're waiting to see the numbers back. It is 100% okay, and it's gonna. I think it's gonna get better before it gets worse. I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. I mean, I think we're gonna have scarier days ahead.
Yeah.
As the spike. So I would encourage you and the other parents to speak up, come forward. We want to hear from you. I think that this, as Dan said, everything's on the table. We're not saying no to anything, but it's really helpful to hear. And so please don't feel like.
No, I appreciate that.
One
and I
of the
also want
other-
to echo, I appreciate when you were talking about the field trips too, because of course we want life to be as rich as we can, but we need to have those plans in place. Like for example, the staggered lunch times. It would be really helpful maybe in the webinar tomorrow, just a suggestion to maybe detail that a bit more. I think that would be very reassuring to parents. What does that look like? How much distance would be between children versus classrooms? Those sorts of things I think would be very helpful to know.
And one of the other things that I did hear several of you voice concern about is notification of exposure. And
Yeah.
that is something that we dealt with all of last school year. And we do have protocols and procedures in place for that. And so I mean, of all of the things that you have to worry about and that you have concerns about, which I totally understand, that should be one of the least of your worries, because we do have procedures in place for that.
And that's great. I feel like we were never completely clear on what those were. I mean, that was a big part of, we didn't send our daughter back for months past when special education was available because we felt like those things weren't clear to us. And we would ask in IEP meetings, we would ask everybody, and it wasn't clear. And so I think that's also something that could be very useful to clarify in the webinar. Again, I think it's like sometimes the devil's in the details, right? The more that we know those, the better that we'll feel. And also if we really do have an opposition to that policy, then we can voice that, if that makes sense.
Dr. Stepanowski, can, as I'm hearing from these parents, and believe me, it is a scary time. It really is. And, you know, you turn on the media, you hear with young kids, and it is scary. And I, you know, have young kids close to me and in LA Unified being tested. Do you want to either do an FAQ? I mean, we need to have, things change, as we saw with the governor's announcement tonight. Things change so quickly, and communication is key. You're absolutely right. An FAQ, making sure principals have up to the minute information so that, you know, we can make sure that, you know, because your family resource guide is kind of a moving target. You know, things may change on there. So maybe an FAQ as things change.
I think one of the things we excel at is communication. I mean, you know, we had 25 webinars last year.
Yeah.
So literally, so, you know, we're doing a webinar every other week for staff and for parents. So, yeah, we got a webinar tomorrow. Then principals are doing a webinar and pushing out information as well. We'll hit all the FAQs and, yeah, we're all in on communicating and keep communicating and say things 9 different ways 9 times.
It's just hard because right now is another new thing. It's new and it's scary new. And so that's why I brought that up.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then that was our final item. We are adjourned. Thank you.